I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 12th meeting of the Davidson County Commissioners to order. Appreciate you being here. Glad to see everyone. Hope everybody's family and everyone is well. Good to see the sheriff with us tonight. Thank you, sir. And all our staff, thank you for everything that you've been doing in this difficult time. We need to say thank you more often. Our clerk, Debbie, is going to do a roll call. I will say that Commissioner Shell had a problem right before the meeting. He may be able to come in, so we're not going to talk about excusing him, okay?
Okay, Commissioner Krotz?
Present.
Commissioner Elliott?
Here.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Shell? Yes. Commissioner Truill?
Here.
Commissioner Yates?
Here.
Chair Watford?
Here. Commissioner Elliott will do the invocation tonight and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Elliott?
Heavenly Father, God, we come before you tonight and we seek your wisdom. Father, we thank you, God, for the many blessings that you bestow upon us. Father, we thank you, God, for the seats that we have here tonight to represent the citizens of Davidson County and the employees of Davidson County. Father, I thank you for putting your providence and your protection over the many workers who put their lives at risk every day. Father, I thank you, God, for the countless doctors and physicians and nurses that are taking care of our country as we speak. Father, I thank you, God, for the wonderful leadership that we have here at Davidson County. And I continue to ask of your blessings on Davidson County and all of our citizens and all of our employees. Lead, guide us, and direct us. And we pray that you just forgive us of our sins. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the adoption of the agenda tonight, Mr. Martin has asked that agenda item 6B, the lease renewal DMV office, be pulled from the agenda. It will be placed back on the upcoming agenda. As you take a look, are there any changes for the agenda? 6B.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. McClure?
I second.
And Mr. Elliott seconds. All in favor?
Can we
Aye.
do this by roll call?
We'll do roll call again, and that was something I forgot to mention. We're going to do roll call all night, so it's hard to remember.
Commissioner Krotz? Yes. Commissioner Elliott?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes since he's not excused. Vice Chairman Truill?
Yes.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes.
Chair Watford?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
For public hearing tonight, we have the Community Development Block Grant CDBG initial hearing, and I declare the public hearing open. And Mr. Smith will lead this off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a public hearing we have to do every year as part of our response for applying for CDBG funds. So it's a standard procedure you have to do at the beginning of the year. We just do a blanket public hearing to kind of have it covered for the whole year as we do CDBG funds. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of or opposition? Mr. Hill is joining us.
Oh, sorry. That's good. You fine. Thanks, sir. You're welcome.
How can you so smugly pretend that we are living in the same world we were living in when this year began? The witch's brew of perverse incentives designated CDBG was never morally defensible or logically coherent. Now it is even less so. The Thomasville City Council scheduled and advertised a CDBG generic public hearing for March the 16th. It has postponed that hearing indefinitely. You ought to repudiate this one.
There's no need for action by the board. We just needed to conduct this public hearing. All right. We have a rezoning request by LBF Investments LLC in Tyro Township containing 1 acre, more or less, from HC to RS. I declare the public hearing open, and Mr. Kornman will introduce the application. Mr. Michael, you can come to the front and explain the request when Mr. Kornman gets finished, okay? You need a podium.
Read it without it. You have a request by LBF Investments LLC to rezone a portion of said property in Tyro Township, tax map 9 being a portion of lot 78 containing 1 acre more or less. Property is located on the south side of West Old US Highway 64, approximately 360 feet west of the Wheel Hunt Road intersection. The rezoning is requested to change from that of HC Highway Commercial to that of RS Low Intensity Residential District. It was the unanimous recommendation of the planning board on April the 21st to recommend approval of this and a 5-0 vote. The company is being LBF Investments is being represented by Gateway Realty. Mr. Tony Michael is here. You can see the area that's cross-hatched on your zoning map there. Joel was showing that. That had been an old site of an old furniture store, but it's long been demolished and it's no longer being used for commercial purposes.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Michael?
Tony.
I'm actually representing both the buyer and the seller on this, so both are in agreement that they would like to have this rezoned. The buyer is looking to put a couple of spec homes there on the property, and that's what he's going to be doing with the property. So you actually can't build a spec home on a highway commercial zoning, so we had to have it changed to residential zoning for that reason.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Pretty cut and dry.
It is. We've heard the staff recommendation, which was to recommend the request. Any further discussion?
Nobody else is here to speak in opposition or?
I don't see anyone.
Can you get
Mr. Hill?
Mr. Hill.
Mr. Hill, okay, Mr. Michael, Mr. Hill is gonna come up.
whether it's wired or not.
We'll find out whether he's in opposition or
Plenty of cord.
approves.
There is a typo in the last line of the planning board resolution of recommendation. That HI was meant to be RS. 2 weeks ago, you denied some economic development because a preacher complained that it would ruin his neighborhood. 2 weeks before that, you denied a neighborhood because a planner complained that it would ruin some economic development. Tonight, nobody is complaining about anything. The request is to erase that oddball acre of HC from a vast expanse of RS. According to the application, the change would blend the subject property with the single-family homes that surround it and keep a commercial business from going into a residential neighborhood. The applicant is consenting to this down zoning, which would reduce the number of uses permitted by right from 56 to 17. I'm in favor of the request because I always defer to the wishes of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Further discussion? I declare the public hearing closed. I think Mr. Cornman.
Okay, staff would, recommend approval based on policy 6.3 and 6.10 of the adopted land development plan. We do feel like that this is reasonable and consistent with the overall comprehensive plan of the area.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion and a second to approve or deny this rezoning request?
I'll make said motion to approve, this request and adopt the statements of consistency.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
Second by Commissioner Yates. We'll have a roll call vote. That's okay. He was a little quiet.
Commissioner Crott?
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes since he is not here. Vice Chairman Truill?
Yes.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes.
Chair Watford?
Yes.
That motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Item C is a road closure, the portion of the unnamed road in the Isle of Pines between Lot 61 and the office lot accessible from the Lakeshore Avenue. Mr. Fry will lead this off.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you may recall that this has come before the board on a prior occasion, and it had been continued until tonight with the expectation there would be a large crowd who would want to be present and be heard. Attorney Jeff Berg from Lexington represents the applicant on this petition for a road closure. Attorney Peter O'Connell from Greensboro represents the opponents to the closure. Mr. Berg and Mr. O'Connell have been speaking with me over the last several weeks, and this afternoon they jointly requested that the matter be continued until a proposed date of June 23. And there was hope that at that point we might not have some of the same restraints. Perhaps even if we're under those, we'll have to come up with a way of considering it. But that is the request of the applicant and the opponent at this point, and I would respectfully recommend that to the board.
May I have a motion and second to table this public hearing to June the 23rd, 2020? Roll call vote after we have a motion and a second.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
make a motion that we approve the, table this item till June.
Motion made
To
by
the June
Commissioner
date.
Truill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mr. McClure. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Crott?
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes since he is not here. Vice Chairman Truill?
Yes.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes.
Chair Watford? That motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
Chuck, we really need to figure out a way on June 23rd to hear this, whether it's by, Zoom or whatever, you know, we put it off a while, so.
Well, I appreciate that. At the same time, when we get the applicant and the opponents both agreeing to it, it's hard to kind of force their hand to
We
go
can make
forward.
a decision without them here.
I understand. I just, when they come and say that, they don't want to do it, then,
With the Zoom, we can figure out a way or whatever, but I think by June, hopefully it'll be
That's the hope,
where
yes,
we
sir.
can come, hopefully.
I like
know we've
that
kicked the can
amendment
down the road
idea.
about 3 times, and I understand, but it's time to roll on, one way or the other.
For the consent agenda, are there any items to remove from the consent agenda for discussion?
I'd like to, remove O.
The approval of the change order for the courthouse parking lot at 34 Advance Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And I'll make a motion, we approve the remainder.
okay. Commissioner Yates, was
Uh,
yes, sir.
Sorry, my mic wasn't working for a second.
Okay,
I would like to, ask, that we, remove G,
okay.
and talk about it.
Approval to request retention of unspent ROAP funds. That's G. All right. Any additional ones before we go with Commissioner Yates' motion to approve the remainder? Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Commissioner McClure? Roll call vote for,
Commissioner Krotz,
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes. Vice Chairman Truill,
Yes.
Commissioner Yates,
Yes.
Chair Watford.
yes.
That motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
All right. Discussion, first item was O. Mr. Yates,
I thought we're gonna go by G first,
you want to do it first? Okay, all right,
do G and.
okay.
The reason I requested that one to be removed is Mr. Hill had given me, his remarks. Of course, we didn't have a public address, but, he's questioning, the legal aspect of this request, and thinks that we should, dismiss it. So if I could get, the county attorney and Casey to respond to that, if that's okay.
Mr. Jones may be on. We can unmute Richard Jones, he's on.
Okay. That'd be great.
Mr. Jones,
Yes, ma'am.
would you address this question?
Yes, the reason, for the, item or agenda item is the, IMD, which is the, Integrated Mobility Division of NCDOT, sent us a letter, or in a form asking us to either, reject keeping the, any unspent rope funds for this year, or maintain them and keep them to use, for the next year, the next fiscal year. The reason the funds there's possibility of some unspent funds this year is because the decrease in the amount of trips that are being done because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're not doing as many trips, we're just doing essential trips. So not all the money most likely will be spent. We also have the CARES Act funds that has been appropriated for us, that we're in the process of arranging or applying for through IMD and through Winston-Salem. And that funds are 100% federal funds, and they'll pay for any other trips that we're doing this year. So there'll just be a surplus of the rope funds.
Okay. So the DOT asked us to do it. It's nothing illegal. Okay. Thank you.
No, they asked us, and it should have been in there, their request.
Okay. Yep, I was just trying to help Mr. Hill get an answer.
So it does say an approval to request the retention, okay, of the funds. Do we vote on
Yes, ma'am.
this at this point? Okay,
I'm good with it, Madam Chairwoman.
Me too.
Do we have a motion? Can we?
Yeah.
do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion
Okay.
and,
Commissioner Elliott seconds the motion, and so
Okay.
now we can roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Krotz,
yes.
Commissioner Elliott,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes. Vice Chairman Truill,
Yes.
Commissioner Yates,
Yes.
Chair Watford.
Yes.
That motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yates, Commissioner Yates would like to talk about
The Zoom.
the change order.
Who's on Zoom besides Don?
So you have, is it Brian and Danny?
Is Dwayne on there?
Is Dwayne on?
Is Dwayne on? Yes. Yeah, let's unmute him.
Maybe him and Brian?
They unmuted? Yes. Hey, Brian?
Yeah.
I just got a couple, hey, how are you this afternoon?
Good, thanks.
Good. I got a couple questions. One of it was answered in the new agenda, that the prices went down for the metal from 15,000 to 1,500?
Correct.
Okay. Was that just a typo or what? Because I seen that looked expensive to me.
So the original line item in that budget we talked about last Tuesday included the fencing and the gates for the dumpster enclosure. And after you brought that up and discussed that with Alan, this new summary kind of breaks out the cost to make it a little clearer that we got the gates, fencing for the dumpster enclosure, and then the pipe bollards and miscellaneous odds and ends, broken out separately.
Okay, so there was a 15,000 in there that's not there now, so, and you had what in the, I meant to print, I had this printed off at home, but you had 16.
So the 13,600 plus the 1,500 there totaled up to that Division 5 missed metal item. And I just broke them out separately so that it's clear as to which line item was which.
Okay, well, I noticed the 15,000 wasn't there anymore, so that's good. Also on the landscaping, $16,000, for that little bit of landscaping?
That is the quote that we received from our landscaper, as part of the bid day package, for that alternate. Alan and I have discussed, and, we think we can do better, but we just need to have the final landscaping plan approved by the city to confirm that we can, have some savings there.
Okay, that seems like a lot of landscaping for that small area. One other question, 13,600 seems a little expensive for a dumpster enclosure.
There again, that was, our bid day pricing for those areas. And we feel like we could probably have some cost savings, but, we need to, kind of dig into that a little further to confirm that we can save some funds there.
Yeah, you know, we usually handle this in the facilities committee, but we couldn't get all the details the other day. But, you know, I'm just gonna tell you, Brian, we kindly, trust you guys to, you know, work in our best interest. And some of these numbers scare me a little bit that that's not happening.
Well, I guess, or Commissioner Yates, I've responded to that. These were, bid day alternate prices that we received from our subs. We've had discussions with Alan and Dwayne that, as we buy these out, any cost savings will get returned back to you, similar to what we've done with the unused allowances and the construction contingency that we recently returned back.
Yeah, I don't know how Commissioner McClure feels about it or the rest of the board members, but before we'd spend $13,600 on a trash enclosure, we probably need to know the price before we move forward with it. I don't think the citizens out here would, really appreciate us spending that kind of money on a trash enclosure. So I don't know what kind of leeway the board wants to give, to do something of this nature, but I don't feel comfortable, approving $13,600 for a trash enclosure.
I agree with Commissioner Yates also. I think we ought to add in that landscaping part to that too. I think, if the city of Lexington's wanting us to do certain things, we need to have a conversation with them, and really look at that. $16,000 for landscaping, that's a lot of money.
Fred?
I don't have any problem at all looking at the at the numbers, it did seem like it was right smart of money. And, it would seem to me that if Lexington wants to make recommendations about the landscaping, maybe they can kinda help with it.
Brian, in that number, this is, Commissioner Elliott, in that number for landscaping, is there any electrical or lighting in that, or is that just shrubs and moving the earth?
That is, that's just shrub, grass, planted areas. The majority of the earth moving activities is in the line item above, the $68,000 number.
Good God, I'm in
Goodness.
business.
Yeah, I'm with Commissioner Yates on this. I think we can do better than that, especially when we have, you know, in the time that we're in, and local businesses are struggling and everything like this, there'd be some, I think we could lean that out a little bit.
The other thing that Mr. Yates said is relatively important, I believe, and that is that whenever y'all bring something up here, we should already have all this hashed out. In other words, we should be looking at the lowest cost, that we can get the, work done for. Not have to go through, pulling it off the agenda and then sending it back for repricing.
I agree.
Agreed.
So how do y'all wanna move forward?
How do you propose? Do you
Wouldn't pass it to
Say we pull it and,
just pull it and,
Well, I'd say we could probably go on with the parking lot, 'cause I looked at those numbers.
mm-hmm.
And then that'll give you, Brian, to get time back on, our prices back on the enclosure and the landscaping.
I would be happy if they could, you know, maybe get some alternates on this and get it back to the facility committee, and then the facility committee could bring it back to the board.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Pieces off and
Okay.
move forward with the parking lot. That don't slow you down. I didn't see any big concerns with the price of that, but like I say, the first to 15,000 that was in there, and then, of course, you know, I understand what you're telling me, but, the landscaping and the enclosure, if y'all could get back to us on that.
So do we need to vote on the parking lot part tonight? Okay, okay. Okay,
I'll make that motion.
okay. Commissioner Yates made the motion and Commissioner Elliott made second. Roll call vote, please.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Crott,
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes. Vice Chairman Truill,
Yes.
Commissioner Yates,
Yes.
Chair Watford.
Yes.
That motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
All right, item number 7, deliberation tonight. Sheriff Simmons? Are you ready? This is a request for one day off for the employees as pandemic relief, and he's going to share this with us.
We started off last meeting, and, it's Law Enforcement Appreciation Week this week, and we want to appreciate and try to give them a shot in the arm. I felt like we did some things this week for our employees that just finished by having a cookout for my members, and we're going to do that again tomorrow. That's off of us. We wanted to do that for them. Also give them some July to grow beer. They like that. December we charge $30 and we give it to a nonprofit group for that, but just to do something special for them during this time of what they're getting.
I like that.
And we felt like a day off would be something very special for them. It's not a lot, but it is something, so we want to do that for them. As we continue to go through the process of this virus.
Okay. Do I have a motion and second?
I'd be happy to make that motion to approve.
Second.
We have two of
Fred's
those.
got it. Good deal.
Whatever.
Fred has the second. Okay, we'll have,
I can't hear.
We'll have a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Krotz,
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott,
Absolutely.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Shell will be a yes. Vice Chairman Truul,
Yes.
Commissioner Yates,
Yes.
Chair Watford.
Yes.
That motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Hey, Richie, if the guys can grow a beard, what do you do with the ladies?
Casey's going to lead off the discussion on the COVID-19 relief funds.
Madam Chair, I've got a handout right over there. We'll walk around till-
Okay.
start reading right here.
Oh.
I apologize the other day, Commissioner Elliott, I told you I thought these were state funds because I hadn't heard this. These are federal funds, yeah. When I got to reading into what you'd sent, but
Is there something I can get for you? Where are they? Where are we at?
The handout's right there on the chair.
Over here?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I put them under my files on the.
Okay.
Thanks, sir. I didn't want to.
I ain't worried about it.
Well, I'm doing my part.
All right, you got a pick line, you better watch out.
Hey, my doctor said with this stuff here, they could put me in a whole room full of that stuff, I probably wouldn't catch it.
All right. Thank you.
It even took care of the 7-year itch.
Chuck, you wouldn't happen to have that piece of paper that you sent to me, would you, that email?
Certainly get it printed out.
I thought they were gonna be here, but we don't have them here.
Madam Chair, if the board will just allow me and indulge me for just a second. I sent this out early or late last week just so the board members can start to get a mental grip on what is happening here. There is a lot of information coming out of Washington and the state related to this virus, as you all know. Late last week, the county got notified, and again, you have your quick fact sheet here. I tried to make it into a one-pager for you. This is a one-pager summarizing about 50 pages of documents. Thanks to the CARES Act that came out of Washington, and I'm just getting to the plain English version of this, $4 billion got sent to the state of North Carolina to be distributed for COVID-19 relief. Direct payments were made to the big counties, Wake County, Guilford, and Mecklenburg, and the city of Charlotte, and so they didn't qualify for receiving any of those funds. That got subtracted out, and then that left $3.5 billion to go be distributed again statewide for these funds. For this issue. Of that amount, $150 million got set aside for local governments, and for them to be able to distribute out. Kind of, we'll go through that in a few minutes. They distributed it to us based on population. They set criteria for, each county would have a minimum of $250,000. There's an additional $150 million set aside in the state's coffers that could be distributed later, and possibly for revenue replacement once they get the Treasury's guidance on that. So that's sitting there. If you look down, you see the funding process. So the Davidson County award is just shy of $3 million, $2.977053 to be exact. By June 1, and I'm kind of getting to the ahead here, we owe the state 3 pieces of paper to collect these funds. A plan, which I have in the packet here in a minute, a sheet that they prescribe they want us to use to submit to them, a W-2 form, which is just tax information, and an application, a signed application representing this body. Funds must be spent by the end of the year or obligated, as they say, by December 30th, and by October 1st, we owe them a quarterly report on the funds. All of this stuff, and as you all know, as we have uniform guidance principles from federal money guiding us on how we procure things, all that applies. So it doesn't go off the table just because of how this is functioning. There is a clawback provision for misused funds. And you can see there what funds may not be used for. It's a fairly broad plethora of issues there. And then kind of what they've done here is they've laid out broad, and I use that term loosely, categories of what expenses they will allow. And I won't read all those. They're gonna be on the plan sheet, but you can see the list there and the little check marks at the bottom. I mean, it's medical expenses, it's PPEs, it's some of the obvious things, testing. Payroll expenses are allowed, but it is, you have to, the position that you're booking to these funds has to be, in their terms, not mine, their phrase, sorry.
Also, I think we've gotten out of order.
No. Did we?
Yes.
I am so
We can
sorry.
go ahead and stay here, but I think we're on C and we should be on B. But that's okay.
Well, on the new agenda,
It is B.
it is B.
Oh, I'm sorry.
lost the mic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
You broke it.
it's on the computer.
okay. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I don't know how I've gotten backwards.
Substantially dedicated.
Try. Casey, mess with the cord at the
Here you
end
go,
of it.
Casey.
Could be from where we've messed around with
It's
it.
too much stimulus here, so hold on just a second.
Are you ready for questions yet?
Not yet. Let me get through some of this. So you've got 6 categories of expenses, and with the payroll expenses, you've got the position has to be substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the virus. And no, you will not get a definition of what that means. So don't ask me nor the federal government, because they will not tell you. But PPEs and expense and supplies and things like that are all obvious no-brainers. You can do, those all qualify. So skip back, that's your one-page cheat sheet. Again, I kind of consolidated 50 pages of documents, what I thought it was, into the important pieces. But remember, the point of this part of this conversation is to try to figure out what are we going to do to submit to them. The plan is the key piece. I know how to fill out a tax form, I know how to fill out the application, but what do we want to do? And I'm looking for guidance from the board on how do we want to go about developing the plan part of it. On the back side of this document here, I've listed 3 options, and there could be many more ways to do this, or as they say, skin the cat. I've got option 1 where you can actually have a what I call a stakeholder group, a large group that comes, back up. Let me back up here. You have a large group that could get together of stakeholder members in the community, go through and kind of prioritize the spending and make a plan. That's one. And obviously, many of these have pros and cons to them in many different forms. You could, and I'm not sure how the state would do this. I haven't kind of gotten to the meat and potatoes of them of how we would run a potential grant program. In other words, I don't know that I can list 2.9 on the sheet of paper and say, it's a grant program from the county, just trust me. They're going to want some meat and potatoes to the plan. You'll see that in just a second. We could do something similar to issuing it out the way we got the funds, which is spreading it out based on some metric, whether it's population or percentage of sale tax or something of that nature, and issue it to the 5 cities in the county. And then have a balance there that would be the counties, and then we would go through the prioritization process for our part and have them do theirs. And then take all the individual plans, roll them up, make one big one, and we give to the state. Remember, we've just got a few weeks to kind of get this organized. And I just took the liberty there of showing you what that may look like in numbers. And I'm on this page here, by the way. I'm not recommending, I'm not saying I'm torn to any of these options. I'm saying these are the 3 that I kind of come up with. If you flip on the back side of that page, I listed a group of stakeholders there. There could be others. I tried not to, if I was going to attempt to do that option. Obviously, I wouldn't want it to be an unwieldy task, and the larger the group, the more unwieldy it will get. But I did try to find a nice cross-section of folks from the county.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
If I could speak to that, we got some information today talking about a separate relief package that would be going to the school systems in our local hospitals. They're going to be receiving federal money. The state got a call from Representative Larry Potts. He was talking about the allocations that's going to be given to the city of Lexington, Thomasville, and Davidson County school systems, and then to our local hospital systems here. They have already allocated money that will be going to them, so that should not be a part of our package.
And if I can, just let me get through all of this, and now you're down in it. Let me keep it right here just for a second. I understand, but let me get it right here just for a minute, 'cause we gotta establish this before we get in here. I know some of you would wanna know how much we spent on some of these items year to date, so I created you a little sheet here. It's a couple of categories. PPEs, some of our responses on our QRV vehicle, overtime that we've had in those departments. And again, I'm using the definition that the Treasury's Office gave me, which is public safety and public health folks. And I'm not doing support positions in those areas, so I'm trying to keep it into that guideline. Remember, the guideline is substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the virus. So I'm doing this in the absence of them telling me. I've got to kind of figure that out. So anyway, that's a glance at what that would look like. And then also, if you remember, when we first started this, that Sunday we met here for our emergency meeting, was a day or two after that was what we called the Trump sick time. You know, it came through from the feds. So remember, we took that responsibility on, and we expanded our use of our local sick time. These funds qualify that we could book that to. So I listed again those public safety and those public health departments that got some of that 80-hour sick time. So there's total year-to-date expenses for us. What it would be for the cities, I don't know. I haven't asked them yet. But anyway, I figured you all would want to know, so there's that. Now I get to the form. And on the back side of this, by the way, and I think I sent the link out, I won't go through this, but you've got the PowerPoint from the state here in your packet that they showed the managers and myself last Wednesday when they kind of said, here we go, here's the answer, mark, get set, go. You have that here. And there's a link in one of the emails I sent you if you wanted to watch the video with the lady from the state budget office talking about these funds. I won't walk through that. I want to focus on the plan and the plan itself, which starts on this page right here, and it looks like this document here. It's got the state seal on it. And so you can see the instructions are 4 points, and it tells us there in the bold in the middle of the page that we will be responsible for all the documentation, because the county is responsible for that. And then there's even parts of the fine print Commissioner Elliott and I spoke of today. I think there's even individuals can be held personally responsible for misuse of the funds. So whomever signs this thing, if it's myself, I'm sure that I can be held responsible for it. But anyway, the county will be responsible for the reporting part, which is, again, October 1, and whatever we submit to them at the end of this ordeal. And then there are those expense categories. So you see medical expenses with a variety of bullet points listed as to what they're saying could qualify. I'm sure there are others. Public health expenses, expenses of actions to facilitate compliance with the COVID-19 related public health measures, such as, there's a variety of bullet points, the payroll expenses, expenses associated with the provision of economic support in connection with COVID-19 public health emergency, and then a category called other. And then you can see there in the sample page they sent me, they listed town, ABC, city 1, 2, 3, because what they want is a listing of those entities that you would, at this point, what you're creating is a budget, a plan that you're submitting to them. And yes, we've already been told from them it's subject to change. So if we submit the plan June 1, which I assume we will get notified from them, okay, we're going to release the funds, here they come. If something changes on this plan, they're going to have a process for me to submit it back to them and say, okay, it's not exactly as I had it on this, here's the new answer, et cetera. There's no way that they won't have the ability to change. So you can see how simple the form is. And I'm sure you all have a variety of questions, and I hope I have a variety of answers. But I'm going to go ahead and confess to you, more often than not, most of these questions don't have answers. And some of these things we're going to have to move through as we go. But the main thing I want to know tonight, I'm just seeking guidance on, is how do you all would like to make this plan part for the 2.9. Any of the options seem appealing to anyone? Is there a different idea? Is there some other way we can go about it?
2.
And I can go back to that, sorry.
Option 2 is this board retains control.
And that one there, and let me talk about that one just a little bit, because I've thought about that one myself. again, I'll have to give them a little bit of meat to the bone on that plan. You know, I can't just put 2.9 in a cell and say, trust me, I'll figure it out. It'll have to be a little bit of detail, but you can see it's not a great deal of detail. If that were the case, essentially I'm choosing the allocation. I'm saying I'm based it on the county. Because what my plan is to bring this plan back to you all on the 26th for approval of what I submit. So I would be creating the plan or taking a first crack at it, so to speak. So I would come up with the matrices myself for how to allocate funds to the city, if any. I would come up with any type of matrices for how to figure out if the school's getting fund, if any.
On option 3.
Yes, sir.
Would the individual, entities there, would they be required to submit a plan to us for approval?
That's the way I envisioned it. I think you can do this in a variety of ways. The way I would do it is, yes, ask them for a plan for those. What you would be basically doing is giving those first 5 skim off the top. But yes, ask them to give me a plan by the 25th or the 4th or whatever that I can consolidate into one plan.
And if they fail to, then they just not included in the plan.
That's the way I would perceive it. But what it does do, and again, the debate of whether to do it per capita or some other way, that we can figure out. I'm just showing you what per capita look like. Even the sales tax won't be dramatically different from this. But my point is you have essentially moved, in this case, if you chose per capita, $1 million out of 3 off onto someone else to help you figure out how to allocate.
I like the option 3 because that relieves us as a responsibility of making records and keeping up with what cities do.
Well, the other way and again, I'm just talking through this. We're just having a conversation because I don't have all the answers. When the money comes, it's got to come back to this board to be appropriated.
Right.
So what I would do is if we listed these dollar figures or some dollar figures on a plan, then those have a process to where they can fill out an application and give me that plan back, and if it's changed, allow for that. But then it's got to go on an agenda to get appropriated till we've appropriated the whole 2.9 out the door. And at that point, obviously, we're trying to do it as fast as possible for folks to get their relief or their help. But then at that point, then I can go into reporting mode. You see what I'm saying? It's all gone. At that point, I can zero in on October 1st, which is when I owe them kind of a glimpse into what we've done.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Actually, 2 questions. First of all, it looks to me like it's gonna be very tough to meet the base or to meet their criteria to even draw this money anyhow. Unless you come up with something just off the wall.
They're going to be budgets. They're going to be estimates. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you gotta figure out, first of all, where you're gonna spend the money.
Right.
It's gotta be directly related to COVID-19.
Right.
So I see our expense here is only $50-some thousand so far. So trying to meet $2.9 million.
Well, if we wanted to do more testing, if as down the road, remember you got to December, say they come out with a vaccine late in the year. We could get in the vaccine business at that point. We could get into more robust testing. All those expenses qualify. Lily and I have already had her go ahead and give me a potential estimated plan for maybe 2 testing sites in the big cities.
So let me ask you this question. Isn't Novant and those other guys already been testing here?
They are, but the point is you gotta have something that qualifies for this.
You gotta have something on that paper, but I'd rather have something on there that we can really use. I don't know what that is at this point in time.
Sheriff cards or
We can't do that. I don't think sheriff cards.
But I'm just saying.
And the reason I say that, I got a feeling the state's keeping $3.58 billion. So they're gonna be having some funds again to help the hospitals and the testing sites. that's $3.8 billion or whatever I just read here. So that's the majority of the money. They just give us 150 and maybe another 150 more.
Well, if I take the 150 I've already spent, and then say testing sites, and I'm just doing this right here, say $500,000. Now we're at $650. I know the school systems, and again, I know about their direct funding. I learned about it as well just a little while ago. I know they have interest in wanting to discuss with us the possibility of more extended Wi-Fi for students that don't have it. That could be a hefty dollar amount. So we add that to that potentially. I'm just saying you got a potential there for a cost. If you were to do this part with the cities, and you see the bill there for that part, now you've backed out over half the money.
I'll have to also say that one of the big factors in this
you can't double dip. So if we gave it to a subsidiary municipality on sales tax distribution per capita, whatever like that, and we had a number that we were gonna give to them, we not only give them the money, but for the county, we have to vet to make sure that they're not spending on anything that we've spent it on for, like, let's say a nonprofit. If we was to give to one and they was to give to one, that could be a double dip. Well, it's gonna be a hefty task on the administration.
Yeah, I see it. The way I see it, if you try to do that, you really got a mess trying to put a plan together.
Really got a mess. Just my belief, I think, as the county, when you look at us, we have, well, you got it listed here, we've got 911 communications, we have DSS, we have public health, we have, the EMS, we've got the library system, we got a lot of stuff that we provide for the counties that necessarily municipalities are not providing. So when we look at the amount of money that we need and the PPE and the stuff that we have right here, we do have the biggest bang in the buck, Now, the school systems would have had a pretty good argument because we have to take care of them, but now that they're getting their separate relief funding, I think that opens us up for a lot of good discussions, including the hazard pay, if you want to go back to that, or if you wanted new technology that we need. I was asking, Joel earlier about additional VPNs and stuff that we had to have for teleworking. I mean, technology and stuff like that we have that we've had to kind of expand and broaden our horizons for COVID-19. This is the perfect time to look for that. Maybe an ionizing system that we could put in the HVAC, stuff like that kind of cleans and buffs the air. All those things are capabilities that we could do.
Casey?
Do those qualify?
Some of this stuff I'm gonna have to, when you get down to that level of detail, you're gonna have to talk to them.
I know.
But Commissioner Yates is right. For a basic plan, basically what we're doing is we're putting our lottery ball in the hopper.
Mhm.
If they reject it, they reject it. But if they send the plan back and say, this ain't qualified, then obviously I can come back to y'all and say, didn't cut, meet the smell test.
So did I read this right, that each county gets $250,000 base?
That was the proposal minimum, right.
So you still got to qualify.
And in
to
one of the packets, I gave you, I didn't in this one, one of the emails I'd sent, it had a listing of every county and the amount. But remember, those three in the city of Charlotte got excluded because they got direct money. So it was 97 counties, I guess, who got money in this part here. But the bill was written such that everybody got a minimum of $250, and then they took it and I guess they took the balance and spread per capita. I didn't see anybody on the list that was at that level, even smaller counties.
Me either.
It would seem to me that it would be less on the staff to do option 3, because you could allocate the money, let them do their plans, and when they bring the plans back, all you have to do is go over the plans to check for redundancy.
And that's going to be part of it, is we don't have the staff to, put a pencil behind our ear and go around and take a piece of paper and tally all this stuff up. I mean, it's going to have to be some type of, that's why I kind of gravitated at least one of these three. Mr. Shell, have you got one of these?
No.
I'm sorry. I got them right over.
Here's kind of my thought about it. I mean, I don't want to just spend the money because we got it.
No.
If it's needed for something, then I'm willing to spend it. But, just trying to make stuff up to spend the money on, I'm not interested in that.
So, and that's the future needs, because it's easy to know so that's the nitty gritty of what the future needs that do apply.
At minimum, we take this $150,000 almost we spent, and that comes off the top. Mm-hmm. Now, if I got with the other cities, in theory, they've got an amount as well. I don't know what that is just yet, and that's part of talking to them.
Well, I read in here, and who knows, because there's no answers to none of this, but about the economic impact.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your reading as far as what the money what we need to do as a board is try to figure out who has been impacted in this county the worst.
Well, we certainly have with the loss of sales tax.
Well, I seen a report from Casey the other day. The sales tax didn't look that bad.
Not right this minute. And but one of the things you can't do in this is replace revenue.
Right.
So remember that. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to segue.
No,
That county allocation is right there. Sorry. It's in this PDF, PowerPoint.
But I just
should've-
read the base, it said the base, so I didn't know if they
Right.
was gonna give every county 250,000.
I think before they started the distributing it by per capita, they didn't know. So the law was written
The
at
minimum.
minimum of 250, but we're gonna take that and subtract it from 150 million, and the rest goes spread per capita.
Some of those smaller counties, they may be with 250,000.
And I'm sorry, I don't have this memorized, but inside that PowerPoint, you asked me about this, so I'm pointing to it. The allocation per county in North Carolina is right there.
But I guess I'm still a little confused. Is there a minimum that each county's gonna get, a 250 no matter what?
I mean, I can look right here on the.
To cover, I just didn't know if that, like us, if we
You
didn't
can't go
qualify.
below that. You couldn't go below that.
So you still gotta ask for the 250.
Yeah, everybody's in the same position. They all gotta submit plans, all 97 counties, but we can go down and look here, so, Allegheny County got 430,000. I'm trying to find the lowest one.
Yeah, you answered my question. I just didn't know, I know how the feds has been handing money out here lately.
No, this is all, everybody's equal on this.
That everybody'd get 250 no matter whether.
Hyde
they
County
needed
got
it or not.
330, that's the lowest that's the lowest one I see, Hyde County. Got about 330,000
I
set
see
aside for
Terrell
them.
at 315.
Well, but a bunch of them, Johnston County, 3.6 million, Iredale, 3.2, Henderson County, 2.1. So, I mean, they all have to adhere to this process, everybody.
We won't know the president take on sales tax till about July anyway.
Probably, right. And you're gonna see in the budget in a few minutes what I've done to that to take that into account. I got a plan for that as well, the lost part of it. But you can't use this to supplant it back. Now, one of the issues I pressed them on, again, trying to get clarification, go back to the payroll expenses for a minute. In my mind, if I were to take all of the sheriff's office and all of the communicable disease nurses that work for Lillian and charge back their payroll from March to December, that would eat the entire $3 million. That is perfectly allowable in this. If they meet that sentence of mitigating substantially or responding to the virus. That would help me with county money, if you see what I'm saying. To me, that's no different than revenue replacement. That's the same idea, it's the same principle, so.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manager. At what percent of an increase would eat up the 3 million? What did you figure out?
No, I'm just talking about straight charging them. No change in nobody's pay, just charging them to these funds as opposed to charging them to county money.
Gotcha.
And that is, according to the state folks, we asked them, perfectly okay.
Okay.
I find that
hard to believe.
I find that hard to believe as well as a taxpayer, just because in one breath the statement was you can't replace revenue. Well, that's exactly what I just did.
And I heard from Raleigh that they had set aside the $150 million for the second half of this relief funding for lost
Potentially for lost revenue. If the Treasury's office says it's okay, we may see another round of this for the loss of the sales tax you're gonna see in the budget in just a second.
And I think what kind of kicks you right there when it says substantially.
Right.
Right. Can you prove that?
Well, and that's why we asked them the point blank questions of, can you give us a percentage? Is it 50? And the answer is we can't.
Well, substantial to me is over 50.
And it also, as I spoke to the chairwoman about today, it's also tricky, and I'm not trying to belabor this, I just want y'all to see the level of, what's the right word? People are trying to help, but sometimes we get into, there's laws behind this stuff. What is responding to the virus? Is it me and Lillian? I've probably worked on this virus with pieces of paper more than I have anything else in the last month and a half. But is that responding to the virus? I wouldn't think so. I've not left the building, but I don't think I am in harm's way. You know what I mean? To me, responding means dealing with it on the street. And so you see what I'm saying? There's all kinds of questions floating around of what does this mean? What does that mean? Because they take this clawback part pretty serious. If you do something with it and you do it wrong, they're going to take the money back.
Mr. Manager, I'm sorry.
No,
So I shared with the board and the manager, probably about 2 or 3 days ago, a coronavirus relief fund frequently asked questions, dated as of May 4th, 2020, and it's from the North Carolina Treasury. This was shared with us from Senate Pro Tem President Phil Berger, and he shared this with a lot of the people in Rockingham County, and I thought it was pretty neat that it answered a lot of the questions that we're asking here tonight. I can share.
It's in the email they got, yeah.
Yeah, I'd check that out, because it talks about the substantially, dedicated and what that means, and some examples of the things that could be paid for and the things that could not.
But it never answers that question. And that guidance is coming from the United States Treasury's office. And they will not answer that question to the state of North Carolina, who is in turn not going to answer it for us. So in the absence of no answer, as I told the chairwoman last Friday, I would not worry about trying to charge payroll to any of this, if that makes sense, because once you do it, the clawback and it could enact, and then I don't know what will happen. These parts that I've got identified on the incurred costs, I feel okay about, because I've gone through and hand-selected the job classes that I think are law enforcement officers, jailers, EMTs, communicable disease nurses, folks that I'm pretty sure meet that definition. If they don't, we got a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Not support people, not an office person who happens to work in public health, but a communicable disease nurse who is actually dealing with it. That's my definition of responding. So I'm taking it a little more literal than they are putting out guidance for.
I'm looking at number 5 that says expenses associated with the provision of economic support in connection.
Mm-hmm.
That one is vague as well.
It is.
That was, what do you do there?
And the way I would, if we wanted to put funds to that, that's one of the reasons why one of the folks on the stakeholder part was someone that deals with the small business stuff over at the community college.
Right. So that would appeal to option number 2.
Well,
right?
instead of giving funds, it could appeal to any of the options, but instead of giving funds directly to a business, I would go through a subsidiary that could handle it for you.
Right.
You've got to get your tentacles out in this thing a little bit.
So that
you need help, in other words.
That could be applied to 1, 2, or 3.
Well, it could be. That's what I'm saying. It could be a nonprofit.
Yeah.
That deals with helping people in bad times.
So the Chamber of Commerce.
Potentially. I don't want to get into who.
No, but I'm just saying, like
saying.
the Chamber.
Right.
I mean, I would suggest. I mean, I would think they would be more.
Yeah.
Of what's
somebody that
happening
can
in the
help
community.
you get the money spread and then report back to you without you having to actually. You're the philanthropist part of it at that point. You know what I mean? That's because we need help. If not, we're going to be staff-wise going out to every business.
That's what I said a while ago, and I ain't so sure that some of these commissioners here wouldn't be the best people to be on the steering committee, because we need to figure out, first thing we need to do is figure out who's been impacted the worst in this county.
All 7 of you were listed on this thing. So I didn't know if all 7 of you wanted to attempt to try it. But if it's an option, I put all 7, plus staff and everybody else, folks that would be trying to help.
Because, and I ain't one on spending money that we don't need, but there's a lot of citizens or a lot of businesses here in this community that need it.
Right.
And I ain't saying there ain't other places that's needed.
But it's finding out who and how and the criteria and, and again, I'm not advocating completely for this option. I'm just simply saying it's not like we don't have a track record doing this. I pointed out email. The animal ordinance was a little unruly. We got it. We got it done. The Sportsplex community thing was a big group. I know it didn't go through, but it was a big unwieldy group and it worked.
Good job.
The problem is this is on a fast track.
And that's the issue.
Super fast.
And the question that I have is, when you talk about double dipping and you give small business owners the chance to do the SBA loans, and then and the provision in here that really got me was the ones about the citizens, those that could not afford mortgage and stuff like that. But we already have programs through DSS that deal with mortgage and payments and helping people with food, and so that would be a double dip because we're already providing money for that. So we couldn't provide this money to go with that, because if they found it out, then we'd have to pay it back. So it's really deep.
Some businesses didn't get any.
They did not. So we would have to come up with something like, well, if you filed for it and didn't get it, or if you received it, then you wouldn't be, valid to get our funds.
You have to make sure that it, what they were using it for met.
That's
If
right.
they went and bought PPEs and signage with it, I'm pretty sure that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm giving it to to employees for offsetting costs. I don't know. We have to talk to the
But
state.
it says for economic. It's for,
I understand.
It's no no revenue replacement, so I
Right.
mean, it ain't, I mean, how
I
are you
would
gonna
assume
help?
that applies to them too, right?
If we did option three, and I'm kinda hung up on that one, but if we did option three, you could still have the stakeholders group for the balance of the money.
Okay, yes. And I mean,
I'm just trying to get out of having to, having a group that
Do that
sits
the other
down
day,
there
Jeff,
with
yeah.
everybody's special interest.
and I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. None of these
that's,
options
that's
are
what's gonna happen,
100%.
you know,
Go to
you've been
option-
there.
If you go to option three, you eliminate a lot of that because
Mhm.
you put it on the cities to
So this
come
is
back with a
different from
plan.
what I'm reading right here.
None of these options are quote unquote 100%,
Yeah, well, it
great,
says in
you
there
know.
that the plans can change.
right. Yeah.
Now, I'm reading something here, and I know Mr. Berger sent this out or whatever, but just relating to businesses. A program that is, aimed at assisting small business with the cost of business interruption caused by required closures should be tailored to assist those businesses in need such assistance. But in this, it says you can,
Yeah.
and here it says no revenue, so I'm reading two different things here.
But welcome to our world.
Yeah.
That's the life we've lived for the last 8 weeks on this.
And I understand that
Yeah.
because that's the same thing that's been going on with the SBA.
Right.
They've been changing it daily, and I understand. They tried to write this thing in
If they
a
want
month.
somebody, you know,
Well, it's messy. I ain't gonna lie, it's messy.
It's hard to spend, $4 billion in a
Right.
month when you're trying to make it
If
up
you did
as
that
you
with
go.
the businesses, you'd have to just do their expenses, not their revenue.
Right,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
expenses, I agree.
You're right.
You know, but I hate it. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of businesses here in this county that's gonna close on account of this.
Yeah.
Because they just-
Already two announced, I think.
I don't know if this helps, but is it better if we just, if y'all could help me with, do you want to entertain the group part of it? Or would you rather staff come up with a plan to get you on the 26th? That maybe, if we could solve that dilemma, that would help me.
Well,
Because if we go the group route, it's a whole different animal
Yeah.
than if we try the other
combined
one.
option one and option three, you could go ahead and distribute the money to the cities, and then the group could meet to determine what you're gonna do with the rest of it. And their decisions wouldn't have to be, well, it wouldn't be as hard, because some of it would already be taken care of.
Right.
Are we, seeing that we have to vet the cities for the money that we do give them? That would make that a little difficult, but so let me wrap my head around this. If we would do the sales tax distribution.
The way
per
we
capita,
distribute it,
yeah,
whatever,
let's
right.
just
Right.
say that. And let's say that the townships and the city, the municipalities equal, just for giggles, $500,000, 1.5 million, whatever like that.
Right.
We have that pocket full of money. Necessarily, that $1.5 million is not going out to them. They have to be approved by us to get that. So even though we could allot that amount for that percentage that they get, like let's just say the county gets 71% and then 29% goes to, the wherever, would that be an option that we could have a pool of money and then they could come, because who's gonna vet it? That would have to be internal.
It'd be me, yeah. I would make them give us by the 25th, at least if we chose that, like Commissioner McClure said, that option, I'd go ahead and make them give us some type of, skeleton framework plan that says, I think I'm gonna buy this much PPEs, and then I have some other options from now to December. I'd like to do this, this, and this. I'd like to see that on paper. I don't want just one number and say, here's what I got. And then once we get the funds, you're right, it's gotta come back to the board for appropriating. At that point, they'd have to give it back to me, and then I would know plans have changed, or they haven't, but then reality kicks in.
That's right. Could we add that language, Mr. Attorney, to, if we did that way, to the municipalities that said that, if you're not meeting the requirements that is set up for this, then they can be held, since we're the one throat to choke, and I hate to say it that way, but we're over the whole pool of money.
I thought about having Chuck, and I hate to spring this on him now, but, I thought about having a little small agreement.
Okay.
As a part of them coming back. This first round, remember, is just to make the budget. It's the fake part of this. It doesn't exist yet. Reality will kick in once this money's wired to us in June.
I
'Cause
just
I'm
don't like
confident
you
this-
signing
No,
something and you being.
Well, what,
I
if
don't
the
like
plan changes, I'll submit it back to them.
Okay.
But I would like to have the cities, if that's the path we go, I would like for them to give me two things. What they've spent year to date, just like I've shown you, which should not be hard if they've been tracking it, thinking they're gonna get reimbursed for it. And then B, what they think they need to budget to deal with X or Y or Z from now to December. And submit that to me now, so I can see it, not by line item or by receipts, obviously that hadn't happened, so they can't give me receipts, but what they think they're gonna do. And then we can take a look at it internally and realize that won't qualify, that will qualify, that's an easy one. We better ask the state about that one, maybe that one ain't good, and get the plan together and get it pulled back into one plan to give you all.
So let's just say Lexington says they got $200,000 worth of, are they planning to spend $200,000? So if we send it to Raleigh and they approve it, do we just write Lexington a check for
No, we would
$200,000?
appropriate the funds, and then we could do it multiple ways. We could do it like we got it, on a, give it to them, and then they spend and report back method, or you could do it reimbursable. You could have them spend it, give you the receipts for reality,
I think that's the way
and
it
do
needs
it
to be handled
backwards.
for sure, receipt.
Yeah,
Which is not what got done to us here, you know what I mean? They didn't make us spend $3 million and say, give us the receipts and we'll figure it out. You know, they actually gonna give you dole it out, so.
We gotta,
Holding you responsible.
You're right,
for it.
they're making you sign your name, and then even added the caveat of, your organization can be held responsible, and you personally, Casey,
They may
we can
ask
talk
for
to you
receipts.
if there's a problem, right?
but we've got a small, really, if you look at comparison as to what the expenditures could be, we got a very small amount of money to deal with. And when you look at, just use Lexington as an example. Now, you're looking at what their expenses are as far as the COVID-19, okay? But what are you gonna do about Lexington City Schools?
Well,
I
that's
mean,
one-
that's the schools could take up all that money.
But, right, and that's one of the reasons that gets back to the stakeholder group. You know, I had them on the list for that exact reason. I mean,
Right.
they're the biggest employer in the county, is, again, I wasn't looking forward to doing an unwieldy 40-member group either, but at least the plan gets done one time, and I'm not saying it won't change later. I'm saying, but 40 fingerprints have touched it, and it's got the group's approval of it.
Well, I think,
You know,
I think that before you
Folks got a
get
chance
a
to weigh
group
in.
together and include the schools, you need to find out what the schools are getting.
That's right.
Because if the schools are getting their own bucket of money, then should they be included in this?
well, they are getting it. I know they are. I can answer that part.
They're
but,
getting it.
But the question is, I was gonna have that's the purpose of the group meeting, is to vet that out. You know, not me, if I'm gonna call them and ask them, then there's no point in having the group. So I want the competition of the group, actually. That's what I'm looking forward to, is folks bring their year-to-date expenses and their projected budget for this, and we end up with a prioritization list. And if it's more than 3 million, then obviously somebody is not gonna get what they want.
Having served on 2 animal committees, I'm not looking forward to the group.
Well, here's another one I was gonna ask the board, could Fred lead this charge? Could he help me?
Find everybody to agree on that.
Oh, I know they won't. I know they won't. But the opposite, the inverse of that is, if I do the whole thing and prescribe the numbers, then it'll get twisted around that it's my plan when
Well,
things are around.
If we just use it per capita or whatever you were talking about, and we allocate that amount of money, and they have to come up with a plan, whenever they come up with a plan, as they spend the money, we give them the money.
That's up to the board. That's why I'm looking for feedback. I'm not held to any of these. I'm just saying there's pros and cons to all this stuff.
I have a question for the county attorney. I'm under the impression, and I've been told, that municipalities have a FEMA grant that they are qualified for, that the local government is not qualified for COVID-19 help. Are you aware of anything?
I'm not aware of that. It's interesting to me that they are specifically receiving funds, if they are to receive any funds of this, through us.
That's right.
And it's up to the Board of Commissioners to determine how that's to be allocated.
That's right.
What was that question again, Chris?
I've been told that the municipalities have a grant that they could get for COVID-19 relief funding that necessarily was not provided to the local government. So this was given to the local government to help the local government, and they have the abilities to file for a grant for FEMA relief. So that again would be another possibility of maybe a double dip. And I would like that to be kind of checked in so we know moving
I think
forward.
we can apply for FEMA reimbursement, and you're right, then we couldn't claim these expenses on that. I mean,
Yeah. And if they have, that would be something, you know.
you have to watch that.
Yeah.
If you've gotten, Public Health Department got $128,000 at the last board meeting approved by you all.
And they're
Those
giving.
funds are buying
that's right.
PPEs and tests right now. They can't be used on this now that she's done that, so.
And Public Health's gonna get some money coming down also for the salaries that we can't pay out of this money for that either.
Wait a minute, why can't we go back and pay that out of that?
Well, you can, but then you got a direct grant for those things.
Okay.
Can't go both sides.
I understand now.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking.
And what he's talking about with the FEMA is you can't turn around and budget
You
the
can't.
PPs on this and then turn around and FEMA and say, oh, by the way, can I charge it to you too?
I understand you can't
Yeah.
double dip. I wasn't thinking about the direct grant
Yeah.
that they received on.
So let me ask you this, how simple can this be? Can you put on there that, do you gotta put percentages?
It doesn't say that.
Do you gotta just put, we're gonna spend the money for economic development,
This form right
losses?
here is all you have. This is what you have to fill out. You have to put a dollar amount in each one of those boxes.
So it looks like that'd be simple enough for us to fill out.
But you need to have
Top
the
5
backup.
priorities or 6 priorities, and you list a dollar amount in there, even if it's PPE, then you've got $250,000 set aside for PPE, and if you need to buy personal protection equipment, you got the money there to buy it. If you don't, then you don't.
And
But give that some good thought of what those 6 or 8 items may be, and the
No,
amount of
on the
money.
bottom of number 7, they called out municipalities and nonprofits specifically. So what they're doing there is they're making you need to list your county-wide expenses, meaning not the county of our organization, like hospitals, schools, whatever, in those 6 categories. But then if you give those, like Mr. McClure is saying, that direct appropriation there, or you plan to do it, list them out on this spreadsheet. And you can see they did town ABC, city 1, 2, 3, whatever, for example. So I don't think, Commissioner McClure's idea of the per capita, or again, I'll say it differently, Commissioner Elliott, whatever matrix we use, because it could be anything. It could be people or sales tax or whatever, however you want to chop it up. That does get a substantial amount of money listed in these lines down here off the table. Does that make sense? And leaves us with a balance to figure out that, yes, I probably could take a swipe at making a budget for.
Mr. Manager, that says grants. Would it be as simple if we went as broad as to say that this is the Davidson County COVID-19 grant program, and just say that we're gonna, if we submitted that and then they came back and said that it needed to be more of a, they wanted it more of a line item type base, we could
No, they don't
change
want
it.
line items within this, but I do think they listed the towns and the nonprofits for a reason.
I'm just saying, and what we have to give them.
The rest of our money?
We could give it in a broad sense, and if they came back and said, no, we want it more of a detailed, what we're gonna do.
No, I mean, I think from talking to them, putting one number in one of these blocks is what they want.
Yeah.
They even use the phrase in the bold there, if you look and flip over the page. The county is responsible for maintaining adequate documentation to support expenditures.
Absolutely.
If estimates are being used, the methodology must be documented and defensible. The county is responsible for the following, federal uniform administrative requirements.
Yeah.
But up at the top, you look at number 4, it says, under categories, please aggregate the amount of all expenses for a specific category.
Yeah, that's
So they're
what I'm
not
saying,
looking
but-
for a list this long, they're wanting you to roll it up and put a number in that square. But that number could be made up of, as Mr. Shell pointed out, the schools or the hospital. You could have line items a mile long. They want it rolled up. They don't want to see all that right now.
what I'm thinking is, I'm kinda like Mr. Yates here. Let's say we allocate in the budget $250 for PPE. Then we only spend $200. We'll just give them the $50,000 back.
No, I don't.
Or you can roll it on another.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if they'll allow you to do that, roll it over. If we got a grant program, give that 50,000 to someone else.
They'd probably let you resubmit this back to them and just show
Mhm.
them.
Says you can change the plan.
Yeah, where you
Yeah.
can move it.
But I like that idea of just going ahead and doing a budget and,
Simple.
yeah, and you're right, keep it
That ain't
simple,
simple. You
Kiss.
get all them stakeholders on there meeting in a group.
I don't wanna do
ain't
that.
Simple.
No, I don't wanna do the stakeholders.
And everybody starts fighting for their piece of
That's right.
money, you know?
Mhm. They're like lobbyists.
We just allocate the money, and then if we wanna have a stakeholder.
Well, so, I mean,
group,
is it the
which less,
consensus of the board for me to take a crack at number 3 mixed with number 2?
Number one.
No,
Number
number
one's
2.
group?
No.
Number one's the
Yeah,
group.
number 1's the group, so, we're moving away from that one. You want,
Okay.
would you like me to take a shot by the 26th at some type of creating a budget that provides for the cities in some fashion, and then have the balance where we create a budget for ourselves in some form or fashion?
Mhm.
Of mixed with things we've already spent money on versus things we'd like to budget for.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And I,
fine.
All right.
Let me ask you this now. Earlier, I read in your notes where this couldn't be loss of revenue or whatever, and then I read in Commissioner, Elliott's that it could, and then I read here on the application it can.
Right. Can't. That was
It
told
can.
to us, yeah. So
It
like,
says right here on the application, I would think this would overrule about anything that.
Where does it say that,
expenditures
sorry?
related to the provisions of grants to small businesses to reimburse the cost
oh,
of
yeah,
business
but right here,
interruptions
let me show you this.
caused by required closure. It don't get no,
Right here in red, big bold red,
I don't have red on my, oh
no
yeah, that's why I
revenue
seen red on
replacement.
yours, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying this is on the application.
Well, I know, but I mean, I've got to go, they even told us that. You cannot take loss of sales tax revenue and book it in the county's coffers and
No, I
replace
ain't
it.
saying sales tax revenue, I'm talking about small businesses that suffered.
I don't know that they're gonna, that part of it, they didn't get down into telling us what.
Well, it's pretty into it right here, it says to reimburse the cost of businesses interruption.
I know, but nobody asked that specific question. Isn't that called revenue replacement? Nobody
No.
got into that.
Business interruption, as it applies to insurance, is the cost of doing business. Like, rent, lights, stuff like that, not the loss of revenue.
Right. I mean, that's the way I take it. That's the way I think they would have intended it, is if you had a hardship and could not pay your bills.
Right, it's hard to understand, you can't figure anybody's revenue, or you can't start paying their revenue, but like Fred said, you can pay them to get through this period, so.
And that's one of the reasons why number 5 of all of the expense categories, other than the payroll one, I don't like the payroll one as much either, because again, the rules the goalpost moves if you ask the right question. Number 5 bothers me a little bit in the sense of what Commissioner Elliott brought up, the tracking of it from staff's point of view. If we got into this game of giving direct things to businesses, it'd almost be better, as you mentioned, give it to somebody who can deal with it for you, report it back to you.
Somebody's going to be, I mean, it's not gonna
Yeah,
be no
that's not
easy
gonna
feat
be
either.
easy.
No,
sir.
it's not.
When it says right here, may recipient, this is a question, may recipients use fund payments to provide emergency financial assistance to individuals and families directly impacted by loss of income due to COVID-19 public health emergency. So, yes, you could,
But that's individual.
that's individuals, but then it says guidance provides that eligible expenditures, governments have discretion to determine what payments are necessary. A program that is aimed at assisting small businesses with the cost of business interruption caused by required closures should be tailored to assist those businesses in need of such assistance. And it said the amount of a grant to a small business to reimburse the cost of a business interruption caused by required closures would also be an eligible expenditure under Section 601D of the Social Security Act as outlined in this guidance.
You keep mentioning the word closures. They're talking about business interruption for the businesses that are closed.
Right.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
Caused by
That's
required closures.
You got these, restaurants with these drive-through, and they've lost 60% of their revenue, but they still have, they still have the expenses. So they can't, they're paying the expenses out of their revenue, so, you'd have to eliminate them.
You're right.
I mean, that could be a nightmare.
Yes.
Penalize them for trying to
stay
make it
alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like Curly's. Curly's has lost 60% of their income. Doing about 30% through the drive-through. And, you know, he's not the only one. I mean, Domino's and all these things.
But I would consider that as a closure, a partial closure. You know, that's a partial closure. They only can do drive-through now.
You got every business in the county.
It's almost like a 70% closure.
Yeah.
Well, if we put any funds in that box, we'll have to work with the state on getting that one clarified.
Well,
Cause I can't.
But it's not quite like every other business in the county because they were mandated to shut down. Most of the other ones was
That's
not.
right.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that's not doing the percentage of business that maybe they were doing, but they wasn't mandated to shut down for closure of the
And it
COVID.
does say required closures, so I don't know if that means literally like a restaurant, cause they did, or, not a restaurant, I mean, I guess, bar.
You take
They close the restaurants.
Yeah, barber shop,
I don't know if them offering the option for takeout.
Gyms.
See how,
It wouldn't, I don't think.
but see, that's the key word, we think. See, when you get on the phone with the state and ask them these questions, we're gonna go, it's gonna be like that. So,
yeah. But the barber shops, you're right.
barber shops would definitely, cause they forced them to
Look
stop,
at this.
right.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem
Over here.
trying
I
to
need
put
one.
something together for
Back to the
options
70s.
2 and 3 and bringing it back. Let's just take a look at it.
Is that the consensus here? You would,
Is that all right?
me take a crack at it and?
That's
I mean, that's up to y'all. I mean, not that I don't have confidence in you, but I'd like to see a couple commissioners kind of be,
The problem is this deadline.
I know, that's why you can't have very many people
You
at
got
all.
all these stakeholders.
Well, is there?
I'm not saying a bunch of stakeholders, I'm just saying a couple
Can I ask
commissioners.
this then? Is there a couple of you that either wanna volunteer to help me? If I need you, I won't say at my beck and call, but over the next again, I'm on the fast track. If I needed to pull together a group and maybe we pull together some of the folks on that list, not all of them, but a few of them, just to
I'd
kind of.
say keep that, I mean, I'd say you gotta keep it small to make this deadline. You ain't
It's
got-
almost like forming a committee,
We
which
don't
I don't
have
really
time.
wanna do,
We don't have
but
time
I
for all
need,
that.
if you
You ain't
want a
got
little
but a
help,
couple
and I needed
weeks.
some help.
You ain't got but a couple weeks.
I don't have long. I mean, this has got, by next week, I need to be on the fast track to finishing this.
Yeah. I would like to see something put together quickly and sent out to the 7 of us and just get like a consensus, cause without us having to come back to a meeting, and that way when we come in on the 26th, we all kinda know what we're doing, and go ahead and pass it, cause you've gotta do it, June 1st, is that what yeah.
I would owe it to them next day.
But as far as if you want to call me or me come in or help or whatever, you got my number, call me, I'm always here
Then it gets
for
in the
you.
notice and meetings if there's 4.
I know, I'm just saying, if,
I'm just saying a couple.
Well,
but-
that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking,
But
is
you're
somebody.
gonna have to get with somebody that's got some answers, and I don't know that we have the answer
no, we don't.
right now.
We
You
need
know,
more.
and I get it, when you talk to some of the municipalities, of course, they're gonna give you a figure, you know? And then you may be shooting them in the foot if there's FEMA money coming on the back end from them, for them.
Or they can claim something else for that.
Claim something else,
Right.
you
They
know?
give, if you give this per capita, that don't mean they got the money. That means that they have to design a plan and give it back to us to approve. And they're not gonna get the money until they, give us receipts for what they spent.
Yeah, but their plan may not be something that we really,
There's where that rub gets
Right.
into that con is they may see,
I mean,
you know,
Yeah.
money's coming to us.
It's
and we kinda-
just a matter of if they have anything that has to do with revenue, you take it out. I mean, they got the same instructions that we would have, and if they have something in their plan that we're providing in the county, then we just eliminate that in their plan.
Well, here's the deal, I'm looking at the cost to us, Casey had the cost to us down here.
about 130.
How much?
130.
130. And look at all the things we offer as a county that
Better
the city
believe it.
don't offer.
You better
So
believe it.
theirs can be nowhere close to that.
No, I wouldn't anticipate it being, no.
You see?
It's gotta be tied into a direct expense for this virus. In other words, it just can't be general stuff. It's gotta be, if you're gonna have like senior services, and they're delivering meals and they're delivering packages to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we got 130 of that in here. The city election is not gonna have that. I mean, you know.
No, I know that.
We're struggling to meet this 130 mark, you know?
And again, that's one of the reasons why I went ahead and had Lillian cheat and run what a budget would look like to do testing, just so I'd know. Are we dealing with $100,000 or $1 million? It's helpful to know the answer to that in broad terms, so you know, okay, am I even close to spending 2.9, or I'm never gonna get there. But I mean, if it's the will of you all, I'll create
And like I say, I'm
some
not
options.
crazy about the testing part. I think you leave that to the hospitals, and, you know, they've done a pretty good job this last time setting up a couple mobile, testing facilities.
Well, the
and-
state's gonna require some level of percentage of testing in the county. That all of us are, not just us, but combined with the hospitals and the private doctors, are gonna have to meet. I think it's 5% per month. So you're looking at 800 people. So we're gonna be forced to do some testing. Now, you ain't gonna get out of that free.
The hospitals or the
It's all of us together. They look at it as a county. They don't just look at it as Lillian. They say 5% is what's gonna have to be tested
So how
per
many
month.
tests have we run ourselves?
200 roundish numbers of about a total, I think Lillian told me today, of countywide about 1,500 tests.
So we give the test, or we send them somewhere to take?
We can give them. She's got 100 tests left over there now.
So she's already done 200
Right.
herself?
Right. But going forward to December, remember, this money's gotta be spent on into the future in December. She's gonna have to do a lot more testing, because the testing's gonna ramp up. I mean, the feds are quoting numbers by September. They want 30 to 40 million Americans a day tested.
So
A
are
day.
they,
They wanna flip the whole country over in a week.
so are they giving us the test?
No, she buys them from, LabCorp or straight from the state lab.
Is that a quick test, or is that? the
No,
swab
I think these are still the swab.
Let's go ahead and
And then,
get a budget or something back for the combining those two. And, let's just take a look at it. You can send it out via email for,
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we'll look at
comment.
it.
well, that's what I wanna make sure everybody helps me here. You want me to combine those two options together and start with there and make a plan? Everybody good with that? At least taking a crack attempt at it?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
You guys substantiate the numbers given, right?
Sorry?
You've got to substantiate.
On my
the
side, I
numbers
do.
Before you receive funds, is that correct?
No, sorry, Mr. Shell, in this little testing block here, what they want is they want that thing back right there. They want a number right here. Now, if you calculated expenses in a spreadsheet this mile long, they want you to roll it up and drop that number in there.
And how long will it take you to do that spreadsheet?
We're tracking it by down into the granular level, so we're gonna, what you got right here, sorry. Like I've added it up, what we spent, what Mr. Yates is talking about. Now you see it at a pretty high level. But we've got backup for all this stuff. You know, like for overtime expenses, we can go pull the time sheet, staple all that together, send it to them. But this is just a one pager of that 130,000. If I were sending this back to them, I'm not gonna pull it by department, I'll just pull the totals and tell them, I think this initial round is just creating the budget. You're gonna be required to give them all this stuff by October.
And Commissioner Shaw, I think that, one thing I think you're asking is, once they set that, if they turn around and realize that those numbers aren't exactly right, they can make a new budget and submit it. The budget can be updated, it'll be sort of a living, breathing document.
If you see you're not spending as much here and you need it somewhere else, I would think.
They'll have a
anybody-
process for changes.
There's a question that keeps rolling over in my mind, and maybe you and Chuck have the answer to it, because I can't quite figure it out. It's got all these counties, and these are the things that we're expected to do to obtain the money, correct? So how did Guilford, Mecklenburg, Wake County, and City of Charlotte receive their funds directly already?
I don't know.
It's a population.
A population thing, maybe
Yeah, but, I
mixed
mean,
with cases.
where's the documentation of what that money is
They
being
just
used?
received the money.
Yeah. We could probably go find
We
deep
don't
in the
have-
law.
We don't have
But their
what they gotta
population
do.
is no more important than our population.
But it
That's
is
what I'm
to the
saying.
government, because they send it to
Sure
them.
it is.
They
Sure
send
it
it to
is.
them direct.
You follow that on the ballot box, it's really important to them.
I don't know, Mr. Shea, I don't have an answer.
That's not the way you.
I'm
it should
assuming
be.
it's a
Everybody
mix
should be
of
treated equal.
But there's-
population and cases
But
maybe,
there's-
I don't know.
They're still gonna have to account for the money the same way that everyone
They
else
gonna have to
is.
account for it too. It's just they got a direct infusion as opposed to
Commissioner Shell,
allocation.
I'd like to speak to you on that. I know Guilford County's already had their board meeting, and Guilford County chose not to give the municipalities or townships nothing. They're keeping all the money. So their plan was really simple. They didn't have to do a lot, and they didn't have to give the school systems a lot, 'cause they knew the school systems are getting their own batch of money, so they took it all for themselves. So I don't know if the other two did that, but I do know that Guilford did that. That might have made it a little quicker.
And here's something, I thought about that a while ago. Maybe Mecklenburg and all those guys haven't got the money yet. That money's just been set aside. Do you know that answer?
It
Or they
says,
still
it says receive funds directly,
Yeah.
received,
Yeah.
not in past
I don't know if
tense.
they've got
So
it.
they don't have to qualify for theirs. That don't make
That's what I'm,
sense.
that's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm not saying they're not gonna have to report on it. I'm sure they will.
Well, see, we gotta qualify for
But
ours.
what-
So do they have to qualify for theirs?
Well, we got a prescribed number. You know, they gave us our number.
Based on the population.
Right, but we still gotta qualify for it to receive
Right,
it.
right.
Do they have
I
to
mean, I don't know if
qualify
they had to
receive
submit a
theirs?
plan. I think it was probably directly to them and then told, you gotta report on this after the fact.
But
You
I
wanna
got
go ahead
another
and
question.
get that budget together?
How much money in this, how much money have we spent on testing so far?
I don't know. I'd have to get you that. I'm gonna say under this supplies thing,
Cause I don't see anything.
I don't know on that one. I'll have to find out. We'll get you that. I ain't exactly sure.
You see Lillian's in the doorway?
Lillian, do you know how much you spent? Because Jason didn't have it. This is all PPEs from the green block right here.
Yes.
How much have you spent on testing?
So far, we've received test kits from the state at no cost. And the only people we've been testing on that realm are those high-level folks. We have purchased 100 tests from LabCorp out of the money that y'all appropriated to us at the last meeting from the state, that $128,000. So that's how we spent that money, or that's how we paid for those tests, and they were $52 a test, and we bought 100.
But that was paid for through the grant.
Y'all appropriated that last time, that came to us from the state of North Carolina for COVID relief for the health department directly. And we had some flexible spending in there, and so we used those dollars for the test kits and other things.
So the state's already gave you some tests,
Yes, sir, y'all approved it in the last,
well, I'm talking
no,
about,
not tests, the tests we've ordered through Alton from the state EOC, and that goes directly to the state lab. The test kits I bought out of that $128,000 at $52 a pop are LabCorp tests.
okay, so the state's been doing all of our testing for free,
Yes, sir.
right? And how many tests have we sent the state? A couple hundred?
Yes, sir. And those are only for people who are first responders, healthcare
Symptomatic.
workers, or live in congregate living. The LabCorp test, we have the flexibility to use for anyone. But the state lab, to keep their numbers down, are doing the high-risk folks.
Okay.
There was one conversation you and I had at that you said the VA was helping with a nursing home.
Yes, sir.
So they're doing the testing for that, or do y'all get the tests from them and then give them back?
The VA sends their own folks there to do it, and they're just testing VA individuals who are in the nursing home.
Okay, so not everybody.
Right, we
Okay.
tested the other folks there.
Okay, all right, so y'all did that, okay.
With the state test.
Gotcha.
Got
Now
one
that
more
makes
quick
more
question,
sense.
I promise. We'll move on, or I will. The 5% required testing, is that what you just said?
Mhm.
Who's supposed to pay for that? When they require you to do something, where does the required funds come from?
That is something that we are trying to understand right now at the local health department. So, it is, one of those things that the state's told us to do. We've been told that there are different ways that you can bill insurance for it. You can, work through the state portal for people that don't have insurance. And then, perhaps we could use that $128,000. We have not made a move, to stand up anything just yet until we get all those details.
Like I say, when they start mandating that you test somebody, they need to mandate where the money's coming from.
Right, we got the notice about the 5% and got no notice on how we were gonna fund it.
I'm with
So,
you.
we're just kinda waiting and doing our research.
Unfunded mandate.
Okay, thank you, a lot of good information, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Miss Lily.
Always.
Thank you.
All right,
You gonna bring something back?
I am gonna bring something back, and
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and say it. I don't know that I'll adhere to the population, but I'll come up with a way to distribute it. So that makes that fair. Because what I don't want now is this to be the gospel number on the page that
No,
I'm
that's
gonna
fine.
adhere to.
I don't know how much money I'd put in there for testing, because it sounds like the state's already, stepped up to the
Like
plate.
I said, the
to,
feds are gonna, this is the
test.
federal government saying they wanna test 30 to 40 million Americans a day by September. That will be a shared response by everybody, so.
And if you don't use it for testing, you can put it someplace else.
Yeah.
You just have to submit the plan
So,
again.
so where did you read that 30 to 40 million?
I just watched the press conference yesterday and, General, Brent, I can't pronounce his last name. That was his,
Attorney
part of his
General.
presentation. Yeah,
What if people don't wanna take the test? They
I
can't
can't
force
answer
them to.
that. That's the federal government's plan on that. I can't answer that.
Okey-doke.
That's a really good question.
We'll head to the 26th then. That's the game plan. Is everybody okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Sorry this is
How
such
much?
a mess, but
No,
It is
thank
what it
you.
is.
Yeah, you answered all my questions. Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, back to item number C, discussion on executive order number 138, easing restrictions on travel, business operations, and mass gatherings, Phase 1. Commissioner McClure is going to lead this off.
I put it on there for discussion because it's, if you read the whereas that the, governor put down in that 138, a lot of it says, the executive order states that the governor has determined that local control of the emergency is insufficient to assure adequate protection of lives and property, and that needed control cannot be imposed locally. And those statements just fly in the face of what the resolution was that we sent them asking for local control. So he just made that up because we never received any response back from him. So he's just, those statements are just made up by the governor. And he, you know, whenever he says that, he says all counties haven't done it. Well, why should all counties have to do it? The counties that want to do it ought to be allowed, but he's taking that out of context. Now, there's some bills that are being drafted now by the legislature to take that lonely control out of his hands and make it where there has to be other people involved in making these decisions, but that's not really gonna help us now, and when the legislature's not gonna be able to change it because they don't have override veto. So, I mean, that's pretty much dead in the water. And I read that resolution from Beaufort County, and it doesn't say anything. All it does is repeat exactly what has been done. And I mean, we can send a resolution if you want to do that, but it's just not, it's not gonna go anyplace. The resolution that we sent, asking the governor for the ability to have some input on the local control, didn't go anywhere. He didn't even bother to answer it. So I just put it in there for discussion. I don't know whether you want to do anything. If you wanted to do anything at all, I would direct it toward those statements that he made, that we don't have the facilities to do local control.
They don't want us to have any local control, but yet they want us to do local testing and,
And administer local grants
right.
to municipalities.
No.
I get you.
I mean, yeah,
The
we
local
get you.
control on this 138 was just the governor's plan for opening. Not all this other stuff, not the testing, not all that other stuff.
Oh, I know that,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm saying he don't have any confidence in us for any local control over anything but what they need us to have local control.
Well, you know, I was talking with folks up there in Raleigh, and I told them, I said, you know, Main Street, Charlotte, is not exactly Main Street, Lexington.
Amen.
You know,
Look at Charlotte Airport and look at Lexington Airport.
Yeah, and you can, if you had local control, you could do different phases, but it doesn't have to necessarily follow one size fits all like the governor's doing. But what just anchored me more than anything else was this business about, we didn't have the ability to do it. He never called us to find out if we did it.
Right.
Well, he's also getting his hair cut before his press conferences, and by the look of this room, nobody in here has.
I take offense to that, Commissioner.
Well, okay, except for one commissioner. I think he has, I don't know what he's thinking, or if he's even thinking at all, but I believe he has eroded our constitutional rights versus, religion, our right to gather. We can sit here and go through the Bill of Rights, and I believe we can hit every one of them that he has sit here and taken away for the last 65 days. And his first order, it called for Council of State approval. He issued the order, he released it at noon. He didn't even send it to Council of State till 1. Council of State denied it by 3 p.m., and by 5 p.m. he reissued the same order citing a different general statute that did not require Council of State approval to bypass our Constitution here in North Carolina. And I think he has just went above and beyond, it's just sickening.
Well, this whole emergency powers that he has, unfortunately, was done by a Republican.
Well, it was,
Rory.
but I believe at the time when they did it, there was oversight. There was not enough thought put into it that he would do this.
No, I agree, for sure, and that's one of the things that we look at. We make a decision, you gotta know where the ripples are going.
Absolutely.
And that wasn't done, but what's done's done, and the only thing that I have is a problem. I'm not looking for a resolution or anything. If we do anything at all, I would address, those statements where he says, whereas the local government can't do it. Because he hadn't called us, he hadn't asked us, and we actually sent a resolution in asking him and got no reply.
Commissioner McClure, with the comment made by, Commissioner, Krotz, I'm okay with the way that you've written this resolution, and I wholeheartedly agree, with what you're saying in this. My only concern was the first part, but seeing that this is a public meeting and it's been said that, explained of how the concurrence of the Council of State went and how he used a different general statute to kind of surpass the state of North Carolina's Constitution, and that's on public record right now. I'm good. You have my support with sending this resolution to Raleigh.
It's not the resolution that I drafted.
That was the one that I asked our clerk to type. That was Beaufort County had did it, and I would be more than willing to add in what Commissioner McClure was talking about, the aspect that he never did contact us.
I think it is.
That he has taken everything upon himself without reaching out to the local governments. And our own president every year has us come in and talk to him, because he says the local government is where it's at.
Commissioner Yates said it the best. Where is it in a day and time? And Commissioner Shell, you've said it multiple times too, when we talk about the cities and how we have the funds here. We are the purse. And we do a lot of things that's not really recognized about how important the board is and what we do for all the citizens in Davidson County. But when you said, Commissioner Yates, that, hey, it's one thing that the governor wants to come down in the state and the federal government and everything, the state wants us to deliver all these funds, deliver all these grants, and we have that much say in the county, but yet we don't know how to protect our citizens here. When we live around these businesses and we see these people every day, that's really a slap in the face to this board of commissioners. And I respect each and every one of y'all that sit here. Don's sitting at home, and I know without a shadow of a doubt, even if we argue and we don't get along and stuff like that, my grandfather told me one time that if two people always agree, one of them's not needed. So it's good that we iron sharpens iron, and I respect each and every one of y'all. And there's a reason why thousands of citizens voted y'all to sit in these seats, and I respect you, and I think the governor ought to respect you. That's all I got to say.
I will say what?
I've been quiet. I'd like to say something too.
Go ahead.
Preach it, brother.
Okay, I was listening to what Mr. McClure said, and he's absolutely right. whatever we do right now, it's not gonna change anything now. Everything I hear from Beaufort County or Raleigh, we're getting close to election time. It's Republicans against Democrats. That's all it is. You can see it. And I respect our state government. I don't care who's the governor, if he's a Republican or a Democrat, I respect him. He's got a hard job. He's got to try to find a meeting place with the economy and with the protection of the people. I realize that, and it's hard to do. And when you look at what Beaufort County, it's always the Republicans, the Democrats against it, the Republicans, when it goes down there. Everything I get back, or everything and I don't read Facebook, but some of my friends do, and they tell me, everything on Facebook, it's all politics. And I agree with Mr. McClure. Whatever we do now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And if whatever we do now is not going to help right now, it might help later. The Council on States you talk about, why didn't all the Council of States sign that resolution? They didn't, because they go down party lines. And this is just not the time to talk about politics, I don't think. And because of that, you know, I think it was our last meeting, Beaufort County didn't want us to bring immigrants in. Now they don't want us to do this. I don't know what they're going to send next time, but I'm tired of listening to Beaufort County's resolution. I said a lot to not say anything. I'm just saying, I don't think a resolution needs to go down there, but y'all do what you want to.
Yeah,
That's about all I want to say. Yes, sir.
I was gonna add that there was a commissioner here, before who was dead set against resolutions that didn't mean anything. And he called my hand on it several different times. And, that's the reason I started off saying, I'm not asking for a resolution. It just needs to be discussed, I think, and
I agree.
Made aware.
That leads me to, I'm gonna take the bull by the horn now. I agree with you, Mr. McClure, about the wording that you were talking about. I agree with that. Because I do think we have the ability to do some things very, very well on the local level. But I think the state level equally has some qualities as well as on the national level. And I wasn't going to say anything, but I wrote a few comments because I don't want to send this resolution. And I'm married to the man who's against resolutions. And I know what you're talking about. But we didn't talk about this. And I've heard from, when we've talked about resolutions before, I've heard that we need to follow other commissioners. And we need to follow their wisdom and send a message to our legislature in this particular resolution so that our constituents can be heard. And we're saying that we need to right a wrong. We're saying that we need to limit power. And yet, like Mr. Trull says, it's an election year, and we can use situations and we can use emotions. And there's a lot of emotion in this pandemic that we're talking about. And we're pitted with the financial element that we all are worried about and care about. And it's on our mind all the time. We see it with our neighbors and our friends and in our county. And then we have this other side of death and dying and the actual medical aspect. And we're trying to balance all of those things. And I want to do my job as a commissioner and with you and make wise decisions for our citizenry, because I feel like that's what we all ran to do. And we're going to make some right decisions, we're going to make some wrong decisions, but we're ultimately hoping to improve their everyday lives. And so the legislators will write bills and they will posture, and some elected officials will posture, and knowing Sam in the legislature, I forget how many 100 bills they proposed in the last session. It was mind-boggling to think that that many changes need to be made in the world in which we live in. But something like this strikes, and we have to make new rules, and we have to establish some kind of plan, and that helps. It might help somebody, and it might hurt somebody else. And mistakes will be made, and they have been made, and victories have been made as well. So I don't have a need for this resolution, and I'm going to start paying closer attention to resolutions, because I think we might be misusing them more often than they are helpful. And that's just what I wanted to say tonight.
Chairman, I respect what you said. I think any time that us as a commissioner would feel that our Constitution, whether it be U.S. or state Constitution, would be usurped or sidestepped or misinterpreted, I feel as a commissioner that we took an oath to uphold that. And I would say that wording could be stepped. I'm not trying to get on a bandwagon for that, but I would say if there's any time that there is wrongdoing in the state of North Carolina, in the U.S. or abroad, and we see that either our wonderful state constitution or our U.S. Constitution is being perverted, we need to speak out on it. And it needs to be in a form, like you said, that has teeth, and it's not just useless garb. So I agree. Thank you.
And I agree with what everybody's saying here, and I understand what Commissioner Truill and you mentioned about politicians posturing. In this time right now, I never agreed with our president when he said, let's shut things down. I never agreed with it, not one time. And I love our president. Everybody in this room knows I do. But I don't love somebody blindly enough to follow them into a bad situation. Even if we had shut things down a couple weeks, maybe. But this has gone long enough. I took an oath in '99, and I've taken it multiple times since then, and I've taken another one in this boardroom here to uphold our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. This board doesn't have an army at its will. This board doesn't have a militia at its beck and call. The only thing we can do is send resolutions, and while they may not be meaningful, if you have 100 counties and 90 of them sends a resolution that's similar or even has the same wording, that you've got that many governments in your state saying, hey, Buster, you either straighten up or we got a problem. Now, me personally, I wish next time he come down 85 to go to Charlotte, we could pull him over and hold him in our jail till he fixed it. But we don't have the authority to do that. Now, I'm one of the 3%ers. To me, taking away a constitutional right, there is no reason to do that, period. And that's why I like the resolution, whether we change the wording of it or whatever, just to send that gesture down there to say, we won't change, we want things to go back. And I agree with Chairman Watford, yes, if we open things up, yes, it may hurt people, but also to keep things closed hurts a greater need. I know somebody today that has been sitting around for weeks to be tested. They found out today, most likely the cancer has spread. Because of this COVID stuff, they didn't get the treatment that they could have gotten. The mental aspects that we're looking at, even I had 2 stays in the hospital. That last one, I finally got up and walked out. I couldn't take it anymore because I could get no visitors. I could not leave my room. I couldn't go to the cafeteria. I couldn't do anything. I was stuck in my room for 4 straight days and couldn't do anything. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll go to the VA and get my IV treatments, and I walked out because I wasn't going to stay there till Monday to get it, before I could get home health. And I'm very strong mentally. So this whole epidemic is creating more problems. The other part of it is the jobs. if we don't get this generation and the working class generations back to work, that Social Security check that people are waiting on, there's nobody paying into it. We can't just keep printing money. We just print, what, $2.5 trillion. Now they're looking at doing another $3 trillion. Eventually, we gotta stop printing money. And then the 65 and over crowd's not gonna get a check. And then we're really gonna be in a hurt. That's my feelings. That's how I think about it. And it's whatever this board wants to do.
You made just two statements from two different commissioners about this is the avenue that we ought to take. We've got legislators in Raleigh, and the way it's supposed to work is we're supposed to go to our legislators. We can go individually, or we can invite them down for dinner and do it as a group. But that's the avenue to take, because they're the ones that can make the change. We cannot make the change. So, you know, I contacted both of them, and I talked to them about it, and they said they had bills in the hopper, and as soon as they had a situation where they thought they could override the governor's veto, they were going to put them in there. It doesn't do them any good now to put them in there, because the governor's just going to veto the thing. So they're aware of it, and they're aware of what Davidson County thinks, and they're aware, I think, of what all the commissioners are. Think. If you haven't called them and told them, maybe that's what you need to do. But resolutions, if they can't accomplish anything, there's no sense in sending it up there. I voted for the resolution before because it was asking for permission to deal with some of this stuff locally, and I thought that was something that we ought to do. But like I said, when I started, I wasn't putting this discussion on there in hopes of getting any kind of resolution.
You know, I think that's where Raleigh's wrong. They hadn't asked us for some information, you know? I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah, I agree.
And they hadn't reached out to us. But I agree, and like I say, I've never been a big resolution guy anyhow, because it don't really do any good. It's not worth the paper it's written on. You know, when the citizens decide to go back to work here in Davidson County, they're gonna go if the governor hadn't gave them permission yet.
Come on.
They'll rebel against the governor, so, you
With
know.
regards to this resolution,
We're
here's the
stuck.
thing. You either agree with what's in here or you don't. That's what your vote is. If you don't like what the governor's been doing, then vote for it. If you like what the governor's been doing, then vote against it. That's the bottom line. And the people out here are paying attention, and they're gonna know of what the quality of the person they're putting behind these seats. I mean, it's getting to a point where this is a serious matter and people are paying attention.
Well,
So if you agree with it, vote for it. If you don't agree with it, vote against it.
But we're not voting and
It
saying,
won't do no good, Fred. I agree with all that.
excuse me, we're not voting, and if we vote for it, we're not voting against Cooper, and if we vote against it, we're not voting for Cooper. Cooper ain't got nothing to do with it.
That's exactly right, and that's
So
exactly what I
was
just said.
just gonna correct that statement, that's what you said.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
I said you either agree with this or you don't, period. Vote for it if you agree, vote against it if you don't. That's what I said, Fred. Don't twist my words.
Okay.
You know, I hadn't read it, but I agree.
It carries no merit. It doesn't mean a thing.
It carries no merit, you know?
But
So-
if I agree with it, I don't have a problem voting for it.
But I don't want the people to be misled to think it does any good, because it
No,
doesn't.
you're right. You're right
I
about
mean,
that. And Fred's
what-
right too, in the fact that the legislature do anything they want to without veto power. The governor's just gonna veto.
It's just gonna
But
be.
at least I've spoke my piece.
Yeah.
You know, I've expressed my thoughts on it. And, I mean, and that's what each commissioner has to do. Don't mean you gotta believe like I believe.
But, you know, my thought process is,
I'm just tired of seeing people suffer out here in
there's
our
a way,
community.
you know, and there's my point. Instead of us sending a piece of paper to Raleigh that means nothing, we just talked to Casey about
Get some money.
$2.9 million that we may could spend some time and some effort on that would help our local people.
That's right.
You know, our local businesses and that kind of thing. There's where you really actually get them some help. And, you know, I mean, I don't know how to do it, because it's gonna be very involved and in depth if you try to dig into this thing to, you know, and to me, it's not for government. You know, government can take care of themselves. They can tax and get enough money to cover the wages. It's the people out here that's worked all their life for a small business that they fixing to lose it. There's gonna be a bunch lose it in this next 6 to 8 months. You know, this ain't over yet. They may make it through this, but they ain't gonna be able to hang on when they open back up, and I feel sorry for them. I mean, I really do. I could be in that same boat, working my whole life.
That's the reason I said what I said about, you know, the financial piece as well. And I don't think anybody's, I hope people are not sitting here and looking at what we say as a political thing and who we voted for, who we support as, we have people that are our governors and our leaders, and we are our leaders as well. I just think we have things to do that we can do locally, and we need to do those things. And posturing about resolutions may not be the best way to serve.
Madam Chairwoman, I just want to read the last part of this, and that's what I read, and that's what I stand for. But it says, now therefore, be it resolved, the Davidson County Board of Commissioners respectfully request that North Carolina's General Assembly begin the process of writing general statutes to better define the Emergency Powers Act, and the act now to initiate the process to stop future North Carolina governors from acting unilaterally, unchecked, for extended periods of time. And that's really how I feel, because I don't want an overstep of power of nobody.
I don't think anybody does.
And that's what the legislators are doing.
Yeah.
They've already got together to draft those bills.
That's exactly right. But if we're gonna have a kumbaya session and get in here, and I could put something just for further, be it, instead of making a point to Raleigh, would I just put a comment section and give me a chance to have a one-on-one with the citizens of Davidson County, just kind of let y'all know how I feel? Is that how we're gonna move forward? Or what makes the resolution important to a person enough to send it to the legislation or to the governor? Is it when maybe we feel like our rights are being done, or maybe if our constituents come to us and ask us to be their voice? Necessarily, I've been the voice of people that I might not even believed in. You know, I've made some votes that might go because I represent all the people, you know.
We do.
And some of those votes are hard, you know. But I'm with you, Steve. I mean,
I would
have
make a
passion.
suggestion though, because I don't think sending it to the governor, you might as well throw it in the trash.
Amen, amen.
But if we were gonna do this, I'd send it to our respective legislators. Because this is who this is directing action from.
Oh, yeah.
And like Fred said, if they're already doing that, they're already doing it knowing the governor's gonna veto it. So they're taking an action. And that's all I'm saying is, you either believe this or you don't.
I agree.
You know, it's
I
to
agree,
me.
Commissioner.
And so if we direct this to our legislators instead of the governor, because that's worthless, you know that as well as I do. Their action down into the legislature is worthless because the governor's gonna veto it.
Amen.
But they're taking a stance. And that's pretty much all it is. And
So send it to all the legislators.
you could do that.
I think
I
all
like
the
that.
legislators need to see
Yeah,
it. you know?
yeah,
like that.
I agree with that.
Whether they,
And
for
that's
or
the governor.
against.
I wouldn't send it to the governor.
No, the
That's
governor, you just
waste
wasted time. He'll never
Yeah.
even know a thing
That's
about
right.
it.
Yeah, he's
I
throwing the
agree.
trash can.
Unless you
But-
leave it on his airplane steps or
You have a
something.
problem with that,
Yeah,
Commissioner Cross?
I'm perfectly fine with that. I love Commissioner Yates's thing of unless you leave it on his airplane steps. I was about to say unless you leave it in his barber shop chair, or maybe the person that does his manicures and pedicures at the salon, because he's enjoying life and we can't.
I do agree with Commissioner Yates that I feel like we ought to have more communication with those that represent the state of North Carolina on our behalf.
But
I'd like to have more communication and more open communication.
That we used to have them for dinner.
Yeah.
And whenever we went up there to Raleigh, we used to meet with the legislators up there and go out to dinner and discuss issues, but we don't have anybody going.
Yeah.
You can't talk to him unless you talk to him on the telephone.
Huh?
So you can only talk to him on the telephone now. There's no.
And everybody I talk to
talk
is
to
a
'em on
staffer.
Yeah.
I talk to staffers. I don't talk to the people because I can't get a call back from the candidate. I get a call back from a staffer, and I've called everybody. I've called everybody around. I hope they listen to this because I want you to call me, you know.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd make a motion that we pass this resolution.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Wait a minute.
I understand.
A discussion.
Is it gonna be?
Yes, yes, sir.
Discussion.
Yes.
I don't think that the resolution represents what we've been saying here. The resolution is from Beaufort County, and we need to have a resolution, if we're gonna send one, needs to be addressed to the North Carolina legislators, and it needs to mention the things that we were talking about, that the governor took it upon himself to, ignore the counties and ignore requests for the counties, to be involved in the coming out or the opening up of the counties. And I think that needs to be in there, and, I'm not gonna vote for the resolution the way it is, but I would consider voting for it if that's included.
Madam Chairwoman, I would,
Hold on one
yes, ma'am.
second. Commissioner Truill and Commissioner Shell were wanting to. Commissioner Truill, would you like to weigh in?
Okay. Yes, I think Mr. McClure stated about what I was gonna say. I don't like resolutions either, just like most of you don't.
Commissioner Truill, we can't hear you. Commissioner Truill.
Okay, now can you hear me now?
Now.
Can you hear now?
Okay, start again.
Okay. All right, I was gonna say, I think Mr. McClure said about what I was gonna say. I don't like resolutions whatsoever. However, if the resolution is sent, I think that what Mr. McClure said about the changes that need to be made, to me, an email to Mr. Potts and our other two legislators down there means a whole lot more coming from 7 people here on a first-name basis than a resolution that's not gonna be read by the governor anyway. It's gonna be read by one of his staffers. And, it's little things that we say, like the pedicure and these type things in public. These are things that you read on Facebook and all, and this is what's turned me. I'm not for this resolution either, unless it's changed. And, it's gonna have to be changed anyway. If you send it like it is, down at the bottom, you're gonna have to put who's for it and against it. It's not gonna be totally a unanimous, vote. Go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Shell?
I agree with both Fred and Don on this, that we do need to put that addition in there, and it needs to be sent to our legislators.
All right.
Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, I have, if we could amend it to
Commissioner Cross, I would like to say just one thing to the board. There's not been a single time, though, I have not called, Representative Larry Potts or Representative Steve Jarvis that I've not gotten an answer and not gotten a response very promptly. I'm talking about representation a little bit higher than that, but those two are definitely in the court, and they respond back at all times. And I love the fact that we've got them representing us.
Yeah, I knew what you were talking about when you said that.
Before you start, I'd like for y'all to look at the last paragraph, okay? From acting unilaterally unchecked for extended periods of time. Is that written to show that you don't like decisions that this governor has made to benefit your health and safety?
No.
That's something I'd like for you to think about. And this also could affect any Republican governor, or any Libertarian or whatever governor that comes along. But it has the sense, the whole thing has the sense of righting a wrong, irregardless. And I'd like to, at this time, and I assume that what I'm doing is okay, according to the rules. But, Mr. Fry, could I ask a question about unilateral powers? Because I read about the unilateral powers of the governor, and I've done some reading, and there's some subjectivity in that word, I think. Would you like to comment, or have I asked anything that you could make a comment on? before we have a change in this.
Madam Chair, I think, Mr. Crotts spoke a little while ago as to how it takes something as significant as this pandemic for a close reading of the authority that is granted to the chief executive during a state of emergency, that he can enter either through a declaration of a state of emergency or through executive orders. Now, it's a double-edged sword, because it's not possible when you're drafting the law to know the exact nature of the emergency that you're going to face. Typically, when we face a state of emergency, it's a weather-related issue.
Right. Right.
3 days, you're done.
And, right. And, you know, to be in the midst of the pandemic that we are now requires some novel responses to a different type of threat. And so I think when the law was written, it was written with the expectation that you can't narrowly define the response. And in response to the question that Commissioner Crotts had raised, I believe, last week, as to the authority for the governor to enter this order without the consensus of the Council of State, we had to go back and look and specifically see within the section the authority that was awarded unilaterally to the governor, the authority that was granted only with the concurrence of the Council of State, and then to look and see how the governor in both Executive Order 121 and Executive Order 138 had defined that authority. And he was very careful, or whoever drafted that order was very careful as to how they set that out. Now, I think now the question is this something that needs to be reexamined? And I hear the frustration of all of the circumstances of the pandemic coming through
I do
to be
too.
reflected in this. But does he, under current North Carolina law, does he have the authority to act in this manner? Well, I think the answer is yes, and I think that's what the Council of State is doing in recognizing that, because they're no longer saying you don't have the authority to do this, they're saying we want the law changed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
under our county policy, if you were to have enacted the same kind of order, once this board met again, this board would have had the opportunity to say, no, we're not going to agree to that, we're going to amend it, we're going to change it, or we're just going to do away with it. But our governor doesn't have that same checks and balances under this particular order, this particular law. A lot of laws, he does have to get Council of State approval. Matter of fact, even for some of the weather-related stuff, when the National Weather Association sends out notices and he enacts something, he actually has to send it via email to the Council of State for their approval. But yet, for this particular one law that has been passed in North Carolina, he's acting unilaterally, unchecked, and for an overly extended amount of time, 65 days.
But that's a subjective, isn't that you saying for a too long a period of time? That he made these decisions, and I don't like that. There's a lot of them I don't like at all, but I'm looking at the big picture. Yeah. And the big picture is, I think he and maybe other governors, I'm not going to name names because I don't care who they are. I'm thinking about leadership that stops and thinks, what can I do? What can I enact to protect the people? And that was his decision. Don't like it myself. There's a lot of things that, like I said, I'm not agreeing with this governor and everything that he does, but we have people that are our leaders that make our decisions for us. Like it or not, we have laws, whatever, like it or not, that we're supposed to follow, but we don't like them, but unilaterally unchecked and extended periods of time, to me, is a little bit subjective. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, but what I would like to do, if I could amend the motion, is to send it directly to all the legislators in the General Assembly, and then also add, whereas Governor Cooper blatantly ignored Davidson County's request to have local control over reopening our county. Would that work, Mr. McClure?
Not only did they ignore it, but he used the whereas to justify the Bill 138.
Yes, sir.
He indicated on there that the counties did not have, the ability to do it, or the facilities to take care of their own people. But I would address the whereas, and let Chuck or Debbie or somebody write the thing up and let's take a look at it. But I don't like Beaufort County's stuff. I mean,
Well, we can change it,
they come
however.
up with all this stuff consistently.
I wanted it all to be Davidson County, but I do have one response. So if you look at the governor's powers, if you're for a dictatorship, go along with it. I'm not. There needs to be checks and balances in place, because the governor is nothing but a dictator at this point. And whether it's Democrat or Republican, I don't want one man making all the calls unchecked.
Well, there's where I heard a little something when Karen said a while ago, most of the time laws are made by a governing body, not just one person. It's made up by a group of people, one or the other party, most of the time, or sometime both, you know? So, yeah, kinda the one person rule I don't like, you know? And we don't do it here.
We didn't see this on the horizon whenever they passed it before.
Nobody
but
did.
Whenever it was passed before, it was to give the governor ability to make decisions immediately, like on floods and hurricanes and stuff like that.
I get it, I get it. But, you know, unfortunately, you know,
Been misused.
you would like to be hoping you was working with somebody that would go to the
Yeah.
state council and say, okay, guys, let me get a little bit of y'all's input or whatever. Here's what I don't like about it. I mean, whether he's Republican or Democrat, it has no bother to me.
Amen.
What bothers me is he closed some businesses and didn't close all of them. You know?
And the money makers for the state left open.
Right. So who are the experts that said, you know, a lot of experts has been wrong during this period. You know? Raleigh, Washington, wherever, a lot of them's been wrong.
Falsey's been around.
So what makes one place more dangerous than the other? You know, if you read Sweden's deal with this, herd immunity. So who knows who's right or wrong? We don't know. So anyhow, I just know our people. I've had several phone calls in the last 2 weeks. Our businesses are wanting to go back to work. But, you know, the governor will have to pay for that. You know, I told him our hands is tied. We can't do anything. Are we still under a state of emergency here?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's something we can do.
yeah.
If y'all ready to get out from underneath a state of emergency, we can vote to get ourselves out from the state of emergency.
We're not under a county state of emergency, just the
Oh, I
state.
thought we were, so it's
No,
sunsetted?
no, sir. We never did one.
I thought
We
we done
just
one.
waited
No,
until
we
the
just waited till the
did
state
theirs.
did theirs.
And
I
we
still
did
thought
one.
we went ahead and
We-
done it.
Yeah, we did one.
We did one, yeah.
Yeah.
The three,
It
We did
expired.
that's right, we did,
we're
I'm
under-
sorry,
yeah,
you
we
are
did one.
completely right.
It expired?
No.
I thought it had to be renewed.
Until we call it.
Yeah.
Until we call it. So we're sitting here asking the governor to do something that we haven't even addressed yet.
We need to.
Debbie, I'm
Yeah.
getting old, but.
I'm sorry, I'm getting old. I'm older than you.
That's what that one county did. They come up and said all the
That's true.
businesses could open back up, and then they backed that out and said that their state of emergency just ended. They were still under the governor's state of emergency.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's nothing we can do. The governor overrules us for sure. But if we want out of the state of emergency, we can vote to, at least that's one step toward.
I agree with that, Commissioner Yates.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Some of these counties call state of emergency plus an order.
Yes, and we just did the state.
Some of them did the local order because it was redundant,
Mhm.
because he had already done it.
Mhm.
Their version of their local order was exactly the same as
Mhm.
the state's, so, there's a difference between the local order, I'm talking, Debbie's asking,
Yep.
looking at order.
Yep.
And the state
We,
of emergency.
we did just the blanket one, that's
So,
right.
but one reason we done this, everybody wanted to do state of emergency, because they thought we needed it for the funds. If there was any federal funds to be got, and that was not the case at all.
Well,
We didn't need
let's
that.
end it then, if you want to.
I'm ready to end it.
I am too.
I think we have a resolution on the table. Are we satisfied with the rewrite and the rewrite and the rewrite, and now to do a resolution that's only going to go to our legislators, all our legislators?
The General Assembly.
Containing the information we talked about.
Yeah.
And we can redraft the resolution and send it out to y'all for a general consensus on that it's a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Who
Or if
gave
you
the
want some more
second?
rewrites.
Chris.
Chris did a second.
They have to agree with his change.
I agree.
Well, one question,
Yes, sir.
if it's gonna be rewritten, what are we voting on? I don't know what we're voting on then.
The action, I guess, to write it.
The resolution with the change in the wherefore paragraph,
Whereas, yeah.
or the, I'm,
To address the whereas that the governor put in there that the county didn't have the ability or didn't have the facilities to do to participate in the opening up of the county. I believe that's what it said, isn't it, when it shut?
I wasn't gonna say anything else, but to open up the facilities, is that possible to, that's a reference to hospitals and doctors and that sort of thing?
No,
No.
all I'm saying is that the governor did not, he used the whereases to put the statute 138 in force.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And all I'm saying is where, he said whereas the counties do not have, he didn't ever consult with the counties to find out whether they could or not.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I mean, if you wanna draft something up and send it back out and take a look at it.
Should it be drafted and then, brought up at the next meeting to be voted on? Because you said it's not gonna change anything now, so it's no hurry.
It ain't gonna be over next week anyhow.
That's right.
You okay with that?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. You okay with that?
to
Just
redraft
rewrite
it and
for-
send it on for the 26th?
Yeah, okay.
All right,
So,
finished?
I don't blame Commissioner, Trull or Fred or anybody
Mhm.
else, because I you really wanna look at what you're,
Yeah.
I do,
Yeah. I'm good with that.
okay, so.
You wanna end the,
Are we gonna withdraw the motion and just do general consensus?
Take my motion to table and set it on.
Till the next
Okay.
meeting.
To the next meeting,
all right,
okay?
that sounds good to me.
Motion to table.
on the necessary changes, Dick?
To amend amend the motion to table it till the 26th? Okay.
I'll amend the amendment of the amendment of the amendment.
Of the amendment.
Okay, are we ready to move to the last item?
We need to vote on this.
We need to vote.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Commissioner Crotts,
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott,
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Shell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Truul.
Now,
To table.
The motion to table it till the 26th. Yes?
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Commissioner Yates,
Yes.
Chair Watford.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries 7-0.
Hmm.
So this will be rewritten and back on the agenda for the 26th.
Finally, we have the proposed 2021 fiscal year budget. Casey will lead this off.
Now, next meeting,
Yes,
I
sir.
want the, state of emergency put on there.
The emergency, okay,
Amen.
Mhm.
okay.
We'll get rid of that, and maybe
Okay.
Co-sponsor that.
Yes, I've heard what you said about that. We may also want to ask the manager to be prepared to respond to, what may be the fiscal response, so the impact to the county if we were to terminate the state of emergency.
I thought we already went through that
Thank you.
when we issued the state of emergency.
Well, the reason we entered into the state of emergency, among other reasons, was to make sure we were eligible for whatever funding or state.
No, we already knew the answer to that when we went into the state of emergency.
I'm not sure I know what it is.
Casey found that information out before we ever went into the state of emergency.
Specific question about getting reimbursed by FEMA. So nobody knew of all these extra bills coming there at, so.
It's all federal money.
So far, we haven't been paying any pipelines that I know of, but we do need to do a little more. And that's a good question to ask school government folks, are we tapping ourselves out of anything? I don't know.
I think the last time you had to get it from Ted Budd's office, so I think.
That was on specifically about that FEMA money.
Right, but I'm saying, school of government couldn't give you an answer. They told you, yes, you had to have.
I'd feel better.
Oh, I agree. Show us any repercussions that could come, but I don't want I just want the school of government's answer. I wanna, like I said, last time you had to go to Washington, and that's where I'd like to see the answers come from this time. Is that fair enough?
It is. I think this is the final one for the evening. The first budget I get to deliver, to the Davidson County Board of Commissioners. So I'm gonna go through this real quick. At the front of your book, there is a presentation, and I'm gonna go through that real quickly. If you wanna follow along, you can see it on the screen, but it's also there in your book.
And point at the or at the, I guess over here. Is it starting?
Oh.
Okay, you're good.
That one won't, you want me?
Joel will advance that one as you go.
All right. I think most of you are aware, a lot of the information I'm gonna share here over the next few minutes won't be a shock, I don't believe, because a lot of you are aware, maybe not to the level of detail we're about to go through, but aware of kind of some changes that are gonna have to occur. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had a completely different budget than the one you've got now. So I won't say I had to completely redo it, but I did have to go back to the drawing board just a little bit. Let's start with the revenues. Where's the money come from? So there's your pie chart on the second slide. Proposed tax rate remains the same at 54 cents. We're gonna go through sales tax in a minute. That's gonna be the big one that's gonna have to be reduced, obviously, and I think everybody understands why. We've got 3 articles for that. Remember, you've got the base, what I call the base, the local option, $0.25 cent, and then that 44 that came from the state with the restrictions. All of them are gonna go down. The 44 probably a little more than the others, so we'll go through that in just a minute. We're gonna lose some state revenue that we got notified from, mostly in DSS and our home care programs. So they're gonna, they gave us last year, they're taking back us this year. And again, that's money in, money out, so you reduce the expenses as well. We've got some overall decreases in revenue for, like I spoke at, I think a board meeting or 2 ago, some of the development revenues. Building inspection permits is gonna go down. I'm pretty sure we all know why. Environmental health permits are gonna go down, or we're gonna budget down, in other words. And then some of the art registered deeds revenues, which is again, largely driven by development, so all gonna take it down. And, we're gonna have to use a little more fund balance to make that work. And so a little more than I had prescribed at the retreat. So we'll take that up about $400,000, the change piece to $4 million in total. But overall, the budget's down $2.3 million at the bottom of the screen there. And that's about just under 2%. And that's down against last year's adopted. We're gonna walk through that in just a minute. Not the amended, the adopted. So it's a pretty big swipe at 136.6. Start with the big level numbers here, what the county's worth, our value. I'm sorry if you can't see it on the screen, but I hope you can see it on your page. So there's your tax values over the last, over 13, 14 years. What I got highlighted in the red down there, I just want you to see, is where the adopted budget values are, $14 billion. What we expect they'll come in at the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30, and then what we're gonna budget again. And you can see, I'm still leaving what I call that hedge there as best I can. I don't budget at all for the obvious reasons. The conservative budgeting principles, I'll just say it that way, are financial policies that we've all lived by and this county was built on and we all continue to adhere to, is what's going to weather us through this pandemic. So it's all coming to roost now, and it's clear as to me when we see it on paper. But anyway, I just wanted you to see that. And overall, the per growth at the bottom is just a shade over 1%. Part of that is because if you look way up at the top in that column that says change, you see in 2008 there was a big bump. That was your reval year. And you took those funds and you built schools and you did sewer lines and you renovated schools and you did all those things. So you spent the money wisely and you kept the tax rate the same. So those values generate property tax revenue. And there you can see your 1% growth a year, but what you're looking at here is just a cross section of 2018, and you see March 2019 and March 2020, so you can see a comparison. Right now, today, the collections, we've already collected to the budget, but that's today. I don't know what's gonna come next fall as more employment numbers go up. You know, in 2008, when we did this, we had folks lose their job that had mortgages. You know, I don't know how much of the 30 million unemployed in the country are service workers that maybe don't own, I don't know the answer to that, but we're gonna find out as we get into the fiscal year. That one there, because I lagged behind already, I didn't take it down. I was already behind it, so I didn't bother to move it. The big adjustment here on this slide is the sales tax. So on the left-hand side, you see what the sales tax is generated in the county. And it's over $1 billion. Actually, it's $1.5 billion as of 2019. We've been having pretty good times on sales tax. The economy's been moving along at a pretty nice pace, particularly consumer spending, which is what this represents. The right-hand side, though, you see the 11 side. On the left-hand side, you got 11% increase over here. That's a big number. I mean, when I started here 6 years ago, it was 3 and 4%. 11% is pretty good stout. The right-hand side, though, is what we're going to do to the budget, and you can see the massive decrease there in red, 26%. If you combine all three articles together, then I'm taking it down. And the big part of that, again, is the 44, and I'll go through that in just a minute. Remember, that money can only be spent on education and economic development. But I just want you to see juxtapose those two graphs. The left-hand side is kind of reality today. The right-hand side is going to be what it's going to look like when we move forward into the summer, into the fall. And as Mr. Shell rightfully pointed out, I won't start to know the realities of those answers until the summer comes. On the left-hand side here, now you're looking at I'm on this slide with all these revenues. Now you're looking at all sources of revenue in the general fund, and you can clearly see with your eyes the ones that are going down and the ones that are trending up. So the ones that are going up are not moving a whole lot. Obviously, it's fund balance, because I just told you I got to use more fund balance to make the budget work. And the ones that are in green going down, those are all those development ones we're talking about. And you can see.
Question,
go ahead. Yes, sir.
This license and permit, is it down because Edgar's not buying those expensive permits and?
No. They're juiced into those numbers. That is specifically the Register of Deeds money moving down. The expectation of future development probably slagging off. And so those are not. It's building permits too, but they've already paid for their permits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know they have. That's why I wanted to know if this was showing such a big negative. Because if they bought a tremendous amount of building permits last year, that number's gonna be up, and when you're not selling them this year.
Right. And it was gonna come down naturally due to them anyway, because they've already bought, and so now they've kind of left the market. But it needed to come down. That number needed to come down even more, in expectation of not having any development much at all.
That's come down 18%.
Yeah, I mean, a pretty big job. But the one big number I want y'all to focus in on, I just want you to see, look at the right-hand graph for just a second, and just bear with me here. You're looking at all sources of revenue in the general fund. Take your eyes to the right-hand side, and I can't see it, Commissioner Troy, but I'm sorry, you're good. And I got your budget document here, sir, I'll put it in your box. On the right-hand side, you see the budget that's proposed. 136 and some change. Mm-hmm. Look at the left-hand side that says FY19 actual. And you see how deep down that number is. $20 million. That's a lot of money. So and from my point of view, I've taken what I call a good swipe at making this budget work for protection against the economy going, for lack of a better word, south. Mm-hmm.
We dropped $18 million in revenue.
I'm holding back to that point, correct.
Okay.
Where does the money go? On the expense side. So now you're into those, and you see the graph there, and if you ever want to know how much a percentage is of different types of our government and functions, there it is on the pie chart. We've got the debt service in there, though, for the courthouse. So we're okay to make payments on the courthouse, which obviously we're mandated to do. We've got the red leg loan in there for the industrial part. We've got to make the payments for that next year. And we've got the payments in to deal with the debt we sold for the HVACs and for the schools and the roofs. So we've got all that covered. That's inside the budget. For education, and we'll go through them specifically in just a minute, I have maintained their level of funding. I did not reduce. Actually, I'll take that back. Thomasville took a reduction because of the way the total of the kids, they actually lost children. We'll go through that in just a minute. But as a group, the total, it is the same. They maintained the same amount of nominal dollars, had more kids, and the per pupil went up $1. For now, I'm okay with that until we see these sales tax numbers. If the money comes, we can always amend the budget and come back to the board and appropriate. But you can't do it in reverse. If you give it out, you can't take it back. So I'm okay with it leveling right now and holding funding, quote, holding the line. On the capital, what I did, because remember, those funds got paid for with that sales tax dollars that you can only use for education. Last year, I gave them extra amount of cash. I took it back. And I basically moved it back to 2018. And so they've got a level of funding, and we'll show that in just a second. But the extra I gave them in last year's budget, I removed it because it's being paid for with sales tax, and I can't guarantee it'll be there. The decrease again in human services, as you know, is the loss of the home and care funding. That's also a loss on the expense side. So again, it's what I call money in, money out. To wash. So a little bit deeper on expenses. Sorry. A little bit deeper on expenses. Come on. Here we go. Just in the general fund now. We're not talking about landfill or transportation special funds that have their own money. I'm talking about just general fund here. So we do not have a COLA for employees included in this budget. So it'll be suspended at the moment. We're not going to do the 1.5% and 500 or the 1.5% and 1.7. Again, same premises with the schools. If the money shows up, we can always come back to the board and amend. The pay plan for year 2, suspended for the moment. There's no, and again, it's twofold logic. Number one, it's financial. I'm not sure the money will be here when it comes time to pay it out. And it's also, for me, a perception thing. There's a lot of pain going on out here in these streets with our citizens. From my perspective, I'm not comfortable recommending pay raises in lieu of what is happening out here on the street. And so I'm comfortable with just holding it as is.
6.8, insurance increase factored in?
It is. So the insurance plan that we approved at the last meeting, that is in. So at least the benefit of that is given to our employees where there's no additional cost to them on the plan. And again, we had a retirement bump. Remember that? The Treasury's office sent us a letter, and we've kind of got that baked in as well. We've got all the debt for the projects, like I talked about, for the industrial park, for the courthouse, all that's in. And the high priority schools and roofs. And then, again, the capital money for the schools comes out, goes back to where it was before we had good times with the sales tax. And that per pupil money, we're going to go through that in just a second. That includes charter schools. It's going to move about $1.50. Because the kids went up, the money stayed the same. And again, you know about the reductions here in DSS for foster care and in-home boarding.
Money stayed the same, the kids went.
I'm going to show that in just a second. I'll show you. It's better if you see it. If you want to see what the general fund looks like by function, and sometimes some of you all ask me that, what do we spend on education? What do we spend on this? There it is represented for you. But you can see there the amended budget, and I told you we were down against the adopted. You can see how drastic of a swipe it is against the amended. I'm below where we are right now by $5.6 million, or 4%.
Do what?
I'm on that. If you can look at the bottom of the space there, so see where I've circled in red.
Yeah.
I'm down $5.5 million from the budget we're living on right now.
So the 142 million, you're 5.5 below that.
The budget's proposed at 136.6. I'm below the amended budget, which is 142 right now.
Okay.
And I'm actually below the adopted budget if you take your eyes and go to the next column of 138.9.
Okay.
Casey, you done jumped ahead of me a little bit. I'm reading back. What does this reduces state funds within the DSS related to foster
All that
care?
public assistance money that they get where there's no county dollars in it, they send us estimates every year in February and say, you need to be prepared to budget these things in foster care and in-home services. So that's what DSS puts in their budget request. They have been notified from the state that they will receive a reduction.
Of $500,000.
What is that reduction the cause of?
State funds.
Yeah, I know, but is it COVID-19?
That I can't answer.
Is that where they're...
And the estimates come prior to the COVID-19 kind of kicking in. That is an annual thing with them. They get notified every February.
But $500,000?
Yes, sir. Last year they gave us $700,000 for foster care, and this year get notified backwards.
That's ridiculous.
We're getting $250,000.
$500,000 in foster care.
And here's why I asked that question, because if this is COVID-19 related in the reduction of sales tax that they anticipate getting or something, then that would be something that could go on that list.
I don't know that
Because
that's the case, again, because those estimates came before the pandemic technically started.
Okay.
Before the order kicked in, before the whole 9 yards.
I
So
just wanted to make sure.
your school money, on this slide, so here's kind of what it looks like. If you see the 3 schools and you see the ADM over there, so the ADM's just under 25,000 kids. That's a little bit more than the year before. But because the pie didn't grow and you add more kids, now it gets a game between the 3 school systems as who get what. So the total between the 3 of them, as you can see in the dollars, if you look from left to right, hasn't moved. But how you allocate it to the 3 of them does change based upon how many kids they have. So the county school system got 28,000 and a half more, Lexington got a little bit more, and that comes off the Thomasville side, unfortunately, because they lost children. So there's no way to fix that mathematically if you're trying to keep the per pupil number exactly the same, unfortunately.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. You
And
said
all
you kept
together-
the main thing the same, but because of the population, the
Right.
kids changed.
Changes in amongst the kids in the individual schools makes a difference if you don't grow the pot, right? And right now, we didn't grow the pot, we kept it the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. You can see that on the next page, really nice, represented. This is one of my favorite graphs. I'm not happy about not being able to allocate more per pupil money, as I think on the conference call, the chairwoman and Mr. Truitt we had a conversation with Dr. Light recently. I'm not proud of that. I mean, I had a nice budget a few weeks ago that was going to up this amount, and you remember we hear it all the time. You rank such and such in local funding. Well, we were going to attack that problem. You know, Good Times for Us was going to help them, and then 4 or 5 weeks ago it changes. So again, we're only able to move $1.50 right now. We'll see, but you can see how the trend has been for the kids, and part of that is I think the charter schools siphoning off. Now in the last couple of years, we've upticked it because we've included them in the numbers, and then kind of what I like about this graph is the commitment from the county to the local funding. You can see going one way with the children going down the other way. So this board and other boards all the way back to 2011 has maintained their commitment to education. Sorry. So debt service, another big part of our expenses. And again, you know the courthouse is included. We got all that covered. One thing this does do, though, and now I want you to see those famous debt bars, another graph we always talk about every year. We show this at the retreat and we talk about it. It looks like a roller coaster. You clip the hill from the jail and then you ride it down. The problem is now, and you remember this from a few weeks ago at the retreat, we had the ability, because we were fairly confident about our revenue number, that we were going to maintain the debt service budget at $16 million, even though we didn't need it for the courthouse right now. Because with the jail included at 53, we were shooting to get to 18. That can't happen. So I had to pull those extra funds out, because I can't guarantee, again, the funds will be there. So now we've got the debt service budgeted for reality. What that does is that makes a steep hill climb next year, the year after, and all the way till we get to the point where the jail is included. So you see that bar at the very middle there, 2024, tippy top, gets you to that 18. And we'll have to deal with that as we go forward. On the right-hand side, and I think Commissioner McClure always wants to see this graph, we still have a relatively low amount of debt per citizen. I mean, we still, amongst our peer counties, we don't take on a lot of debt. I mean, $15 million out of 140 is not a substantial number. You know, it's not 30 and 40%, in other words, of our budget. It's more like 15, 12. The orange is the jail, by the way. There's your, if you flip to the next page, there's a snapshot of our outside agencies, or what we call. And so if you look from the left-hand side in the adopted budget last year in 20 over to the proposed, you can see there's nothing left except for tourism, and they're all maintained, by the way, at the same amounts. Tourism, the chamber's commitments have been pulled down. The buy local that we pay for with sales tax, that has been removed. Now we're just buying the memberships for the 3. Economic development, the EDC's contribution remained the same. I did not increase it. The Foresters option does move, obviously, because we have an agreement with them on what percentage we're going to pay. And then at the bottom, the rescue funding remains exactly the same. Rescue squads, in other words. So if you see, when you back out the revenues for some of these items, particularly in that middle category called human services, our county money piece is still, you know, kind of moving down. technically still moving down.
We still got 20 grand in there for Uptown Lexington, I see.
No, she asked for it, it did not get funded.
Yeah.
You see a 0 in the 21 proposed column. But I do have a request, the column next to it is what people have asked for.
Okay, I see you, I got you.
But I did want to highlight the buy local money has been removed, because again, that gets paid for out of that sales tax that goes for economic development. Let's go to capital real quick, and this, getting to the end here. So there's a snapshot of your capital plan. Again, not a lot's changed on this since the retreat, basically the same thing. We still got $5.5 million in capital reserve funds available to use for this plan. But as you can see in the right-hand side of them red boxes, it's not enough to cover the entire plan. So the whole 5-year plan is not what I consider to be fully funded, because there is not enough, and it's largely driven by the cash going to be needed for the jail. Flip to the next page, and now you see the individual projects making up the county side of that. Some of that capital plan is landfill that has tip and fee revenue, but you see and the big part of it is the jail that you all know of. Eventually, we're going to have to get back around to conversations about the backup 911 center, but we've talked with the state and kind of got them to help us with some funds coming through the 911 board. But we will get back to the board at some point in time, and we're still going to have to talk about the countywide server replacement, because we got the 10-year-old servers. You remember this conversation from the retreat, but we'll bring that back at some point in time. If you take these things, and this is my end of my slide here, I think if you take all this stuff in the general fund, and remember we do this every year at the retreat. We add up all these revenues and we take all these expenses and we put them back in the pot and we try to figure out what is it going to do to us in our tax rate and our fund balance for the next 5 years. Well, when you lose revenue, like I'm projecting here, a few weeks ago we were at 3 cents projected for the jail based in 2 years from now. Well, now we've got reductions in revenue and we don't know when those reductions will ever come back, if they ever will. So in the absence of good data, you got to assume worst case scenario. That's what the model is starting to do now, and now it's at 6 cents. It basically doubles because now you've taken that sales tax, instead of doing 11%, you're going to have to adjust your reality down a little bit. Whether that ends up being the case over the next 5 years, I don't know, but that's kind of what I'm starting on the premise. That gets you to 60 cents. And again, that includes the EGRA funds, Commissioner McClure, so that's the impact of them being baked into that as well. And as you can see, if you do the tax rate like that, the other thing it does, you see that row that says fund balance percentage, it basically maintains you what you're living now. That's not to say we couldn't weather more storm because we do have more fund balance. That is an option. But we'll get to that conversation obviously in the next 24 months, so.
And that would exceed $7,200? 6% increase would increase it by, 7.2 million.
1.3 times, yeah, give or take. I can't do that math that fast in my head, but yes. But it's all having to deal with, remember there's two pieces of that jail. There's the debt to build it, and then there's the staffing to run it.
Well,
and
you said 1.3, but that's not factoring in the decrease in the property valuation that you project may happen.
Right now, this thing holds it even. This may assume we don't do a reval, and if we don't, I'm assuming right now, because I don't know, that the values would kind of stay, they wouldn't grow, but we also wouldn't lose. Now, I'm hoping that's not a faulty premise, that they don't go south on us. Again, and I've tried to do this, how does this feel compared to 2008? Because I was in this business then, and it feels a little bit like it sometimes, and sometimes it don't. I don't exactly know. The pan hadn't shaked out yet for us to know. So anyway, but I wanted y'all to see that, because with the jail, running the jail, day-to-day operations with the staff and all the contracts for medical and food, it's going to take a big dollar amount ongoing every year the time we run it. That debt's going to come. It won't come and go instantly, but it's going to, it'll come and go down. So.
I see social services were taking out 1.095 million out of their budget, but we're adding 116 to senior services and 148 to public health. But you're taking over $1 million from social
Most
services.
of that DSS is, again, lost of revenue from the state.
Okay.
So if you lose it, you ain't gonna, unless you're gonna fund it with the county.
Right.
The DSS, the public health stuff is mostly contractual stuff that they've got that's increased, And senior services, I think, is the same thing. Again, you got transportation money. What that don't show you is county money increase.
Okay,
It's just showing you funding increases.
okay. So there was no county money involved in those increases?
I ain't gonna say that. I'd have to look at it specifically. I don't have
Okay.
it. I'd have
And
to-
where's Parks and Rec? I can't find that.
They're back in the section called, culture and, recreation. If you got a tab there, it says culture and recreation.
I don't see.
And I moved them up as well to cover ADA stuff and compliance issues and trying to get them up to, make sure some of our parks, we tried slowly but surely over time to move some of these issues and get them taken care of. It's hard to do it all at one time.
How's that addressed within the budget and, like you're sending that out, Chuck, about the new property the state turned over to us? Is
Yeah.
that, it's gonna take some maintenance and upkeep, is that
It does. Thomas has got more money to do maintenance with, but again, it's a struggle to do, all of it. You know what I mean? You kinda gotta target this part one year and then this part the next year and just move it on down the line.
Right.
I try to keep his equipment up too, cause you all know he's busy with the lawnmowers, he uses equipment all the time. So that's, gets kind of expensive as well, but,
So we increased that one 48,000. That's all.
and his budget's much smaller, so it don't take a lot, but most of that's for the ADAs and most of that's dealing with parks.
But there's more in there for fixing, like the splash pads. Is there money in there for that too? 'Cause I know, okay.
Yeah, maintaining splash pads, yeah.
Okay.
We got to, I mean, we run them. And
I
again,
know.
we hadn't taken it out thinking that COVID-19 is gonna do anything right now, you know, to the park. So I didn't go in there with a scalpel and say, you know, COVID-19 will be here come August, we probably won't run the splash pad. I left it alone for now.
Right, yeah.
Because I don't know, and it could be that the orders come up and they actually are able to open them up. I don't know. You know, the parks are still open right now, it's just the playgrounds.
Just throw a little bit more bleach in the water.
Right, well, I mean, eventually, at some point in time, I'd like to think that they could get back to doing some things. And they obviously take money to do that. On your next to last slide here, I've rearranged this a little bit so you can see it better. Your tax rate compared to some of these other counties. And so I thought that was a neat slide. Just wanted you to see it. I put the lowest one at the bottom, obviously, so, and our reval tax rate a few years ago was 55%, 55 cent proposed, so, you know, we did not move to that option, we stayed where we were. But I did want y'all to see that. The last one here real quick. So there's a bunch of other funds, as you know. These are the only ones that's got major changes, okay? The rest of them, we're just either holding it as is and we just doing it, so it's not really a notable change. This is what I'm calling major change. The sewer, again, we do this every year. We anticipate, and that's the key word. I don't know, but from the city of Winston, a rate change. I would like to think in this time and day that they won't do that, and then we won't have to have that. The capital outlay fund, you already know that school capital outlay is going to be reduced, again, because you know why, the sales tax money. And in the fire districts, I've got 3 that are requesting rate increases, and as you can see from the green little notes there, 2 of them are for fire truck replacement that they need to take on debt service for 30 and 35-year-old fire trucks. So it's almost, from their perspective, not something that they can't not do. And then Central is needing to move a position from part-time to full-time to keep up with the demand. That's also a major theme of the fire districts from ongoing, is trying to find people to work. But anyway, I left the little notes there for you to see. From here, we will move to the 26th to have a public hearing on the budget here in this room at 6 o'clock. And then we'll shoot for June 4th to have our work session like we always do every year for questions and anything anybody wants to talk about. And right now we're targeting that June 9th board meeting to have an ordinance adopted and move forward.
Got a question, how are we gonna handle the public, hearing on the 26th?
We hadn't stopped anybody, you know, from coming. It's like Debbie and I talked about today. I don't classify our meetings technically right now as virtual. You know, a few of you all have done it, but we've done it with the planning board. We'll have to hold them out there if it's a group of people and escort them in to keep the room down, but we have done it.
Have to accommodate them.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not doing the Zoom or asking people to do special instructions, so they can still show up if they need to make comments on this. It's just if it's more than 1 or 2 people or 5 or 6, we may have to make provisions to move them in and out. But we can do that.
And we could always advertise that in addition to the public comment site that we have on the website now, the folks could actually use that for public comments on the budget work session that could be read too. if they would like to do it that way.
Right.
And I'm just saying, when you put them out there, wouldn't you be better off to bring them in here and put them 6 feet apart?
We've tried to limit the room
Chuck's
down to
shaking
the
his
10
head.
max.
The problem right now is still being under phase one, we have a limitation on the number of people that can be in the room. And so it doesn't, we can be 6 feet apart, but there's a lot of room space.
Okay, so what's the difference of 10 people standing out there and 10 people in
No,
here?
what we've done is we've had a group out here, and sometimes we've had them
There is no
downstairs.
We've staged them throughout the building.
We've
to bring
staged them
people
in the
a place.
building, like when we did the planning board meetings, we had some downstairs, and Stephen would hold them, or we knew what item they were here for. And I've done it too, where I've had to, hold on just a second, and we've had the walkie-talkies and knew, okay, this item's ready, all right, go on ahead, and then the other person comes down, and so we've done that way.
We sort of
Staggered them in,
We
you
use
know.
the planning board as a guinea pig.
Yeah, that was a good testing ground to see if we could get away with it.
And you can hear the meeting, we've actually got the speakers out here turned on, so even if they're standing out there, the speakers out there are projecting, and we've got conference room D, they're all, wired with speakers so folks can
So
hear.
you got somebody downstairs that keeps them.
When we had the planning board meetings, we were anticipating some crowds on some of them, particularly if Isle of Pines was mentioned. And so, Stephen Pace and Richie were here, and I did some too, where I went down there, and as the people would walk up, I had a roster list that Scott had given me, and I knew, you're here for such and such item, and they'd say, yep, and I'd say, hold right here for me, just give me a minute and let me check. And then we'd get them up here and get them right here in like just 2 in the hallway, and then they would come in and do their item
But
and
my
then go.
question is, how many was downstairs?
Just a handful, we hadn't
I'm
had
saying if they was 15.
We hadn't had a mob yet. I mean, that's part of going through this. We hadn't had a mob to deal with.
And that evening, we actually had something put in place where we could take cell phone numbers and call them when it was time for them to come in. We were gonna put them in
Almost
order.
have to make sure they was outside, and of
Yeah.
course, then they're congregating outside.
Well, no, we were gonna ask them to stay in their cars till they were called to
Yeah.
come in, if we got to that point.
If we were envisioning, what if a day you had 100,
Yeah.
try to, instead of a bullhorn, could we call you and get it set up that way? So unfortunately, we hadn't had to deal with that, or fortunately, we hadn't had to deal
I
with it.
mean, I'm just asking, I just like to know protocol.
Well, we don't generally have that many people show up.
No, I know, yeah.
Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all.
Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
Do we need to, Casey, do we need a motion?
Made it to 26?
That's, a motion to approve
Sorry,
the,
yes.
yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Krotz?
Yes.
Commissioner Elliott?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yeah.
Commissioner Shell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Truul?
Yes.
Commissioner Yates?
Yes.
Chair Watford?
Yes.
That motion carries 7-0.
Motion adjourned?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconds.
No.
Hey,
No, sir.
you know, I was thinking when you said that about the animal ordinance.
Huh?
You know, I was thinking when you said that about the animal ordinance.